just booting up. Okay, and it says we are live. All right, so I'm here with Hypocrite, or LP, as he has told me I can call him. We're going to discuss veganism, but I think we'll just, talk for a few minutes while people collect here. I'll probably share out the link. In fact, while I share this out, why don't you just tell people what you do on YouTube?
Oh yeah, sure. I got to share it too, but so I don't know. I do like, I guess commentary you could call it, or anti-SJW. Some people might call it. Like, I do a little bit of men's rights, a little bit of like anti-Islamism, or maybe anti-extremism would be a good way to describe it in general. But just rants and putting my thoughts out there, basically.
Cool. I also tend to agree with a lot of those views. Like, I definitely am not pro, mass Muslim immigration. I think social justice is cancer. I think a lot of people have this assumption that vegans are social justice warriors. I'm not sure if you hold that position, but I would
think there's definitely massive parallels and similarities for sure.
Well, we have an overlap. I mean, we have a lot of, so if you were to take a random sample of the population and a random sample of vegans, you'd probably find a higher percentage of social justice warriors in the vegan group. But we definitely are not all social justice. Like, my community, for example, is pretty staunchly anti-social justice.
Yeah, but I mean, do people in your community go out and like vandalize, meat factories and stuff like that? Because that's the sort of like parallels that I'm talking about. That it's that sort of thing, and like bullying people online and sending death threats and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're not going to get any support for, the fucking law breaking and, terrorizing people personally from me. If you, by my community, just mean the vegan community at large, like, obviously we have some idiots. I think that most communities have some idiots.
Yeah. Did you see that the recent BBC thing? Like, it just came out yesterday, or there was a video, and there's some dude, I've seen him before. He's got like the word vegan tattooed on his neck. I don't know if that is enough of a description, but
I'm not sure who you're referring to, but what's the video? I might know it.
It was like, basically they just were interviewing some of the vegan activists, and they were interviewing like a farmer who was talking about getting death threats and stuff like that, like this lady farmer. And the activists, they stormed onto like private property, or like it was like some kind of like slaughterhouse or whatever, and just caused trouble and stuff like that. So and like standing in front of the trucks to try to stop the deliveries and like that sort of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that's probably like Save movement people. Yeah, I mean,
I think that sounds familiar. That could be right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just not sure who the specific activist you're talking about is there.
Yeah, I saw that guy. I'm pretty sure I saw him in a different video where he was talking to two dairy farmers and trying, like, two older dairy farmers, like, across a fence, and he was telling them that, they should do soy and instead of milk, and they were arguing that you need the milk for like babies and stuff like that. So that was I think that's the one other video. I can send you the link like afterwards or whatever if you want to check it out. I understand it's not all vegans are like that, but I think there is an extremist element within veganism, put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, there's extremists all over the place. Like, I don't think that we have a particularly high amount of them. And I mean, to be fair, if any position is extreme, it's supporting the animal holocaust. It's not saying that we should end it. Yeah. So vegans, supporting stabbing billions of animals needlessly, that's the extreme position. Eating plants is not the extreme position.
No, veganism is the animal holocaust, though.
I can hear you almost laughing when you say that. So, I mean, presumably, that's not a true statement.
Well, I think that word is kind of unfair to use for either argument, for either side. But if you're going to use it, it definitely applies more to vegans than meat eaters.
Well, I mean, not to be snide, but, it's the dictionary definition, so it's a completely valid use of the term. And how does it apply more to vegans? We want to not stab the billions of animals. You're saying we should. That's the Holocaust, not doing it, obviously.
The dictionary definition is to reduce the population.
So you're cherry picking a specific definition? I mean, we've got, what's the one that I always use? Slaughter on a mass scale. It should be like pretty much first thing that pops up.
Are you suggesting that the Nazis like forcibly bred Jews as part of the Holocaust?
That's not an essential part of a Holocaust.
Right. Reducing the goal of the Holocaust is to reduce the population, the overall population.
Well, we can just look at the definition of the term. Like, if you want to play...
Do you think the Nazis gassed Jews to eat them, or for fun, or to reduce the population?
Wait, LP, you're dodging the point. We're looking at the actual definition of the term, right? So Holocaust... Whoa. We got to slow down. Okay, so Holocaust, destruction or slaughter on a mass scale. Doesn't have to involve breeding, or eating. We're just talking about destruction or slaughter on a mass scale. If you're going to say that 11 million people over a period of years constitutes a mass scale, then it's logically impossible to deny that multiple billion per year constitutes a mass scale by the same logic. I mean, it's okay. Just like, you can just cave on the point. It's not a fucking big deal. If you say something that I'm wrong about, I will acknowledge it. You should acknowledge that's a valid use of the term.
Well, okay, they're both valid then, so it's irrelevant. It's a wash.
Well, that what I said is a valid use, and what are you talking about? You're saying that
I'm comparing it to the Holocaust that everybody thinks of when you use the word Holocaust.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely a Holocaust too. That's also destruction on a mass scale.
The Holocaust, right? So
a Holocaust.
So what was the goal of the Holocaust? Was it to eat Jews? Was it to...
Wait, 1 second, because we're already... when you say that, you're saying what was the goal, as if that would somehow say anything about the definition I'm using. I just acknowledged your definition's perfectly fine. If you're saying the Holocaust is what the Nazis did, yeah, that's a Holocaust. And I'm also saying that my definition is perfectly valid, and as far as I understand, you just acknowledge that.
I'm saying that what vegans want to do is closer to what the Nazis did than what meat eaters do.
So killing billions of sentient beings needlessly, that's further from the Holocaust than not killing billions of sentient beings needlessly. I mean, I'm not trying to come off like a douche. It's just, you're wrong about this. It's obviously closer to a Holocaust to be killing those animals.
No, I mean, it's not needless, and it's also the intent of what you're doing, right?
Wait. It's 1 second. Well, first of all,
intent matters. Like
intent matters, but when we're talking about the definition, it's not talking about the intent. It's talking about destruction or slaughter on a mass scale.
Hold on.
And then you said two things there. You said it's about the intent and it's needless. And you said it's not needless. I mean, it's completely needless. You can survive without doing it. So why would we do it?
Sorry, what? I'm looking up the definition now just to make sure that.
Yeah, you can take your time. You don't have to like hold up conversation the entire time if you need to like Google anything or look around. I'm just saying the two things you just mentioned were need and intent. I'm not sure if you're saying this to try to get my definition on the table. Neither apply when you're talking about my definition. But just to address those 2 points, I mean, the intent, it's not essential for a Holocaust. A Holocaust is destruction or slaughter on a mass scale. And when you're talking about the need, I mean, it's also not part of the definition, so you're wrong in that sense, but you're also wrong in the sense of saying that we need to do it, because we don't.
Well, okay, I mean, this is sort of pedantic. I don't really want to argue this too much, but
just cave. You just acknowledge it. You don't need, it's not about intent, it's not about need, and it's not needless.
If I concede that meat eaters are engaged in a Holocaust against animals, will you concede that vegans want to make those same animals extinct?
We don't have, I mean, why would we want, okay, first of all, if you concede, you should just concede. Vegans don't have a fucking necessarily a set position on whether animals go extinct or not. Some people care about it, some don't. To me, it's like, I don't particularly care. I care about the quality of life, not just the existence of life. If it was a choice between humans living a shit quality of life or not living, I mean, I would say at some point you just don't even want to live. And one other tiny point, it's not like veganism necessarily means extinction. I mean, you could these animals could still stay around. There can be wildlife areas, there can be, farm sanctuaries. We're not going to keep them around in the same kind of numbers though. But if you're going to try to pull a JF and say that that's a Holocaust, I mean, so what? If humans control their birth rate, is that also a Holocaust? So, yeah.
I mean, it seems to me that like if you massively reduce the population, it's fair to call that a Holocaust. But I know you are attached to your dictionary definition, so that's fine.
Well, yeah, I mean, a Holocaust, you're talking about destruction or slaughter on a mass scale, right? So, I mean, if you want to try to say that that's destruction, like you might be able to work it. But if we're talking about, is it, morally negative, then I definitely don't agree. Like if you want to be pedantic and semantic, you could say technically it's like a grass Holocaust to cut your lawn.
I don't think you can say that.
Well, are you destroying grass on a mass scale?
I wouldn't consider that a mass scale.
I personally wouldn't use the term there. I think it's a big stretch, but just mass scale, how many blades of grass are there? I mean, I'm sure you cut millions of them. It's also, I agree with you that this is pedantic and beside the point. We should just get into the morality of it. But
right.
If you want to say it's a Holocaust to reduce their numbers, I mean, that it seems like a stretch to me because
or a genocide. Let's call it a genocide then.
Well, it depends what you mean by it, because it has a morally negative connotation, right? So I wouldn't use it to refer to some harmless population reduction. Like if humans decided to breed less because we started overpopulating, I'm not going to call that a Holocaust. It's just life not coming into existence. So, I mean, if you're going to be consistent and apply the word Holocaust to all of that, then I guess. But the notion that it's morally negative, I would not accept you slipping that in there.
You can't apply the same outlook to humans as you can to animals, because it's the humans are controlling the animal population. So it's if the humans are deciding to reduce the population of the animals, right? Whereas if humans decide to reduce their own population, it's different because it's not like an external force being exerted on them.
Well, actually, the thing is, the external force is us breeding them. If we were to stop exerting force on them, their numbers would drop.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. So either we breed them or we don't, but we're
not under sorry, go ahead.
We're currently breeding them. So you're the one who wants to change that paradigm, right?
Yeah, just like if we were breeding a slave race of humans, I would say, let's end that. And if someone called it a Holocaust, I would say, okay, well, if you want to be pedantic, there might be, if you want to try to say that's destruction, you might be able to pull that off. It's like a bit iffy, a bit gray, but I definitely would not concede that it's morally negative.
I think it is like that's an extreme example, but you said that, and you kind of casually slid this in there, that the amount of suffering gets to a point where you don't want to live anymore. And I feel like,
sure. Yeah. I would hold to that. Yeah.
I agree with that, but it's so extreme that it almost never happens for people or like anybody else. Like people cling desperately to life. Life is a precious gift. And I can imagine going through extreme, like I would rather live in Auschwitz and have the chance of escaping at some point than to just give up and die because the conditions are horrible.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really any chance of escape for an animal though, right? Like, I agree. If there's some chance of escaping, it's like you have a choice of you can, be in Auschwitz with a chance of escaping or not. I mean, I would have to think about what I want to do, but I totally acknowledge a lot of people would be like, yeah, fucking throw me in there and I'm going to hope to God that I get out. Fair enough. But I think when you're talking about, when I'm saying there's a point where a quality of life is so negative that it's not worth living, I'm obviously assuming that there's not some, magic wand that comes in and ends the suffering for you. I'm assuming that you don't escape the bad conditions. I mean, I think that you'll agree that if you're put in some pain room and just injected with a drug that makes your veins burn, like some CIA torture tactic, you're not going to fucking get out. You're there for life, and it's a choice of experiencing that or dying. I think even if you're going to try to say you want to live, which I would really be pushing on you there, I don't think that would be an honest answer. But even if you're going to say that, surely you would acknowledge that the vast majority of people would say, kill me.
No, I wouldn't want to live like that, but that's an example of the extreme absurdity you have to push it to find a working example. You're not going to find many examples like that in real life for people outside of like being super old and having some kind of like terrible chronic illness or something like that, right? Where like the normal euthanasia type scenarios that I acknowledge exist, but outside of those, you're not like, you're going to put up with a lot.
Well, it's pretty easy to find these situations with animals. Now, just to be clear, my opinion is not that we should just kill the animals on the farms. I mean, transition them into sanctuaries in the cases where it's possible. But
would you put a number on like the population reduction that we would be talking about if we suddenly like outlawed meat eating? Like,
I honestly just don't know. But I would accept whatever number is required to end the unnecessary suffering and death.
But so a massive amount of like population reduction. I'll use
we're definitely
term for you, okay? Right. Yeah, so we're talking about a massive amount of population reduction.
Yeah, it seems like we're talking probably millions at minimum.
Right. Okay.
Because I mean, billions are getting slaughtered per year. It's in the trillions if you count sea life, but how many are actually alive on farms at any given time? I'm not totally sure. But point being, I would accept whatever number is necessary to get to a, morally justifiable relationship with animals.
Okay, so here's how I want to like make an admission here first, before I get into my argument, which is that I don't really care about animal rights, and so I'm not like, I don't consider it immoral to eat meat because I don't grant animals the same rights for that like simplistic reason. But okay. I've listened to some of your debates, and like I know where the conversation goes at this point. How you
because I will let you go to your point, but I just have to hit that right there. I mean, saying I don't care is not an argument. If someone says I don't care about LP's right to life, just fucking kill him, you're going to reject it, right? So you're not being consistent when you deploy that logic when it comes to something that's convenient for you to ignore. I don't care though is not an argument. I'm just saying the argument I don't care though, you're not consistent about it. I mean, if I say I don't care though, and I use that as a justification for killing you,
I'll slightly retweak it. I don't think that we need to enhance existing animal rights in any way. I'm happy with the way things are. Put it that way, okay?
Yeah, so I would say that that's still inconsistent, because if your rights were in the condition of animals and someone was saying, well, I just don't care about improving it, you wouldn't accept that reasoning.
Okay, so I'm all for improving their conditions. I don't have a problem with that.
I just wanted to hit that little point, but you can proceed on to your argument, and then I'd like to get to the core of the ethical stuff, because we've spent a bit of time on semantics here.
Yeah, that sounds good. So somebody sent me a link to one of your videos yesterday, which I think was called "Veganism Destroyed," and you're responding to like a rabbit dude, avatar dude. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do.
They linked me that, and I had never heard of you before. Like I watched that, and then it was later the day that somebody like tweeted us together.
Oh, I know who you're talking. You're talking about AJW. Oh, okay. Sorry, I was confused there for a sec.
Yeah. So in that video, you said, I think at least once or twice, that your moral guideline, so to speak, is that is basically the golden rule. You don't want to do to animals something that you wouldn't want to do to yourself.
I try to maintain logical consistency. I think that that's extremely important when it comes to morality. Yeah.
Okay, so is that different though from the golden rule? Because it sounds different to me.
I mean, I guess it depends like how you interpret the golden rule, because some people go for these really like weird autistic interpretations. I bet you'd probably even disagree with some of these interpretations. Like some people will say, for example, that whatever you want for yourself in your current situation, the golden rule is to want that for other people. So, Osama bin Laden or somebody who's trying to like stab a person to death. I mean, you don't want to die, so why is it okay to kill them? I mean, for me, the golden rule would be more like, what treatment do you think you would deserve if you had put yourself in the position that they're in?
I'm not sure I followed you there. I just thought it was like, don't do something to other people that you wouldn't want done to yourself. That's how.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of it, but it just depends how you mean it exactly, right? Like, say that someone's trying to kill your mom, right? You don't want to die, presumably. So but the only way to stop them from killing your mom, the only certain way to prevent them is to shoot them. Do you support shooting that person? I mean, I do.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So someone who's being like, I'm not saying you're doing this, but someone who's being really autistic about it might try to be like, oh, well, I mean, you want a different treatment for them than you. So that's not following the golden rule. For me, the golden rule would be, what treatment do I think I deserve if I put myself in that guy's position? So if I'm trying to kill someone, do I think I deserve to be tortured? No. I mean, do I think that I deserve to be shot if that's the only way to stop me? Yes. So I would actually say that is a consistent position, and that is following the golden rule. I'm just saying that there's a bit of autism around how people try to interpret it.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
Sure.
So here's the thing with the population reduction and why I feel like it allows me to eat meat morally, because these animals only exist because we breed them to eat. So for them to be gifted the precious gift of life is predicated on the trade-off that we kill them at some point and eat them. Mm-hmm. So if I had to make that decision, I would accept that trade-off rather than not exist.
Yeah, so a few things there. So first of all, the precious gift of life. I mean, that's an interesting way to phrase, life on a factory farm. I'll just leave that there. And then when you're saying you would rather exist, I mean, we're talking about breeding beings into existence. So like, do you think that it's ethical to breed humans purely for the purpose of eating them? If there's humans who could only exist if we're going to breed them, slit their throats and consume their bodies, would you say that that is an ethical thing to do, or would you be against that?
I mean, why would we do that? Is it necessary for survival?
No, and neither is eating animals. Okay. It's true though. Come on, you don't think it's necessary for survival, do you?
I would strictly no.
Because look, I'm just being legit with you. I'm not the guy to debate nutrition with. I'm sure Richard probably would if you want to talk to Vegan Gains.
No, I'm not. I don't want to do that at all.
Yeah, because just you look at peer-reviewed statement by the American Dietetics Association saying veganism is suitable for all stages of life. You have athletes, you have bodybuilders, you have world record holders. There's not a single death attributed to veganism in history. So, I mean, I'm glad that you. Actually, agree. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
That's not true what you just said. There's at least one couple who killed their baby by trying to raise it on soy milk.
Mm-hmm. So just to be clear, that's not actually veganism. That's malnourishment, right? So it's like if you were. Let me show you why. If you feed someone a nutritionally inadequate carnist diet, is it the carnist diet that's killing them, or is it the malnutrition?
I mean, it's a little bit different because
what would you see on their death certificate?
Isn't an ideology that people follow pathologically.
Wait, but we weren't talking about the ideology. We're just talking what is the cause of death. So yes, you're saying the cause of death. The
ideology is the cause of death in that baby's case.
Wait. To be specific though, the cause of death isn't that they're eating a vegan diet, because we're talking about whether it's nutritionally adequate, right? So the cause of death is them not getting proper nutrition. It's not eating plants that is the cause of death. Just like if someone dies on a carnist diet, it's not that diet, it's not the fact that the diet is a carnist diet per se that killed them. It's the fact that it wasn't nutritionally adequate.
Yeah, but carnist diet is just normal, right? It's not an ideological thing that people adopt.
Yeah, but we're talking. I mean, I hear you saying veganism ideology, carnism not ideology. I would agree. I would argue it's like basically a kind of ideology we're indoctrinated into that we don't really realize we hold. But I don't even care. We don't even have to get into any of that. Just this all sprung out of me just asking for confirmation. You agree that it's nutritionally adequate, and you said yes, and then you mentioned one case, and then I said there's no death in history. You said, well, here's one. And I'm just pointing out to that. It's not actually, you know what the term per se means, in of itself, right? It's not veganism.
What you're arguing, it's like saying no one's ever died from a drug overdose because they took the wrong amount of drugs. So drugs didn't kill them.
No, it would be the quantity of drugs in their system. Like if someone died from overdosing on heroin, the cause of death, you'd say it's the amount of heroin in their system. I mean, you might say it's like a fucking heart attack or whatever it triggers, but the thing that caused that was taking in all of those drugs. It's not taking in the plants that's killing you. It's not getting adequate nutrition.
You know what? I don't. It's fine. It's the malnutrition, not vegan. I don't want to argue this at all.
Fair enough. Relevant. Yeah. So let's just get on to the ethics. I mean, my thing is basic. You support like basic human rights. Let's just start with a right to life, right? You think that obviously humans should have a right to life.
Well, I just want to know before we get on to ethics, if you agree with, would you make the same choice in my position?
For me, you need to say it again.
Okay, so I'll give you a hypothetical that's kind of weird, but this is what you like to do, so I'll give you one. If you had to choose between like being euthanized in your sleep, to like you go to bed and you just never wake up and it's painless and everything, or you get to live until 75, but when you're 75, we're going to hang you up by your feet, like slit your throat, drain your blood, and then eat you. Which would you choose?
So like die tonight painlessly or live till 75 and get my throat slit?
Yeah.
I mean, I would probably pick the latter, to be fair. But It's not quite a perfect analogy, right? Because we're talking about creating a life that currently doesn't exist. And you wouldn't agree with bringing a life into existence on the condition that it has to get stabbed to death. That would violate the kind of basic human rights that you, I assume, believe in.
No, I do agree with it for animals. Yeah, totally.
Okay, wait. But for humans, you don't. Just to be clear.
I do within this moral framework that we're operating on, which is if I were that human and that was the only way that I got to experience the precious gift of life.
Yeah, but that's you taking a currently existing being, right? So we're talking about a being that doesn't you exist right now. You're alive. You're here.
Yeah, but that's the golden rule, right? That's me doing, like, asking myself if I would want that done to me.
Well, when you're talking, just to make the analogy tight, though, we're talking about bringing animals into existence on the condition that they live a life like that. So yes, I'm just asking you, do you support bringing human lives into existence on the same condition?
I don't know. I don't support it, but if I would want it for myself if that was my only option.
Yeah, I mean, it muddles it up a bit when you talk about yourself as a currently alive being, right? Because we're talking about breeding beings into existence.
Well, I know, and it's very esoteric to talk about things that don't exist and whether or not they would want to exist.
Because to be clear,
I can only like ask myself, what would I want in that situation? That's the only thing I can reasonably do to reach the proper conclusion.
Well, it doesn't make sense though to put your mind into the place of a non-existent entity, right? Like, picture like sperm or something. It's like if I were the potential being that could exist, would I rather be born or not? Well, I'd rather be born. So should I now have some sacred duty to like preserve all the sperm or something?
That doesn't sound practical.
No, I mean it's not. But I'm just saying the point is when you're talking about a policy of breeding into existence on the condition that you get stabbed to death. You've just said you don't support that. I don't either. That's obviously a huge violation of human rights. So I also don't see why. I don't see any reason to do that. So I think that's worth noting because there is a reason for farm animals, which is to eat them. Yeah, okay, let's say the reason we're to eat humans. Let's just keep the analogy tight.
I don't want to eat humans.
Oh, let's say some people do.
Well,
you don't think it's ethical to breed a human into existence on the condition that they get stabbed to death and eaten at the end of their life, or not even at the end of their life. For animals, it's very early in their life. So
I don't think
stabbed to death and eaten as a young child.
Ethical to breed humans. Full stop.
Well, I mean, then there's already a problem when you're saying it's ethical for animals. Do you not
think that it's ever ethical to breed animals? We should never interfere with like wildlife. We shouldn't breed.
Well, I'm not going to make some kind of categorical statement, but I mean, I definitely don't think that we should be just breeding them needlessly to stab and eat them.
Right. So you pick and choose when it's ethical.
Well, no,
based on what you want, because you want pets, so that's okay then to breed them.
No, I don't support that. No, I'm not trying to be shifty at all there. I'm not able to have all the situations of breeding in my head at once. Okay, so but you can ask whatever ones you want. I don't support breeding for pets. No, obviously not.
You don't support pets? Full stop, or what?
Well, I mean, there's animals currently in existence who are, like in a humane shelter or something like this. I think that to adopt those animals and give them a better quality of life than they'd have in a cage, I think that's rational. But breeding animals for the purpose of pets, so breed an animal, keep it in a cage till a human buys it, that seems clearly unethical to me. And just to be clear, I don't want, I will answer any question you ask. There's no effort to be shifty or shady here at all. Just when you ask me, are you okay with any breeding at all, or are you against all breeding, or whatever it is you said, I'm just not, I don't have all the examples of fucking breeding in my head, but I definitely don't think it's ethical to breed for pets or for food. And I mean, you can name some others and I can tell you what I think about them.
Is it ethical to breed koalas for, to keep the species alive?
It's a bit of a weird territory. I mean, I'm not entirely sure. I guess it depends.
I don't really care, to be honest, because it's totally off topic.
It is. It's completely off topic. I'm just answering it to humor you, so you don't think that I'm being evasive. So if you want to get down to the ethics, though, I mean, my fundamental thing is, look, we believe in human rights. Can we get on the same page with that? We don't have to agree on all the rights, but we definitely agree humans should have a right not to be just killed and eaten, surely.
Okay, as long as you agree with me that, which you already did, I just want to make sure one last time, you agree that you would rather be bred into existence than to not exist, if it was up to you, if you were making the choice for yourself.
If I were bred into existence, would I rather be bred into existence and get stabbed to death, or would I rather...
At some point, like after living a certain number of years where you got to enjoy all that entails?
Okay, well, just to be clear, most animals aren't enjoying shit in those periods of time, but
I don't think that's fair to say.
Well, I mean, most are on factory farms, and a factory farm is not a fun place.
Well, eating is like pleasurable, shitting, pissing, fucking.
So okay, wait. So just to be clear, if that is the question, do I accept being bred into existence where the only joy of my life is eating, shitting, and pissing in some fucking dank shed somewhere? Then I get stabbed. No, I would sooner not live. But
well, if you want to, you get to breed too, right?
Okay, and I get to be, a hand shoved up my fucking vag or whatever, and I get sperm injecting in me. I mean,
feel the wind on your face. You get to feel the
they don't feel the wind in a fucking factory farm, or I mean, wind in a windowless shed.
They're not.
But look, I'm trying to steel man your position though. Like, let's take the best case, and the animal gets like a quote good life, and then they get stabbed at the end. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's weird. Like, I definitely would not support doing that. If you ask me personally, like, I would probably rather enjoy life and then get killed than not enjoy life at all. But the issue I have is that I would not actually support bringing lives into existence under those conditions. And you said the same thing. Basically, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounded like you said, yeah, I mean, if I have a choice, I would rather live, have a good quality of life, and then get killed than not live at all. But you don't actually support that as a policy for how to treat humans, because you understand that there is something wrong about... Wait, one sec. Because you understand... Wait, one sec. Because you understand there's something wrong about that killing at the end.
There's nothing motivating me to want to breed and eat humans versus animals. That's the differentiation. Like, if you want,
well, yeah. I mean, just you can assume that there is
ethics.
Well, I think it's definitely a question of ethics. There's also another little issue, which is
you would choose it for yourself, so it can't be unethical. You wouldn't choose yourself to be treated in an unethical way. So,
well, wait, if you ask me which I would prefer between two unethical options, and I tell you I'd prefer one of them, that doesn't mean that it's ethical.
But that's the reality for these farm animals.
And just one other thing, that we don't have to dwell on this, but there's also just the notion of you're projecting what you would want for yourself into a currently non-existent being. So that also connects to like sperm rights and all this kind of stuff. So I'm just throwing that out there.
I don't think it has anything to do with sperm rights. I think it's just a simple
Whoa,
philosophical question.
Whoa. It totally does. If you're projecting your desires into non-existent beings and saying that being would rather exist, that absolutely applies to sperm.
You seem to have a really arbitrary way.
It's not an argument.
No, you didn't let me finish. Of deciding when we need to be like operating in reality and when we need to be operating in theoretical philosophy.
I don't see how I'm making any kind of arbitrary switch there. I don't accept that. I reject that.
The philosophical question is, would you rather exist, have like a somewhat okay life, not the best life, living on a farm or whatever?
Yeah.
And then die. And then I don't see what that has to do with sperm rights. Like
wait, whoa. But I mean, I'm trying to answer your questions honestly, and you keep going back to the same thing after I address it, right? So that's a bit weird to me. There's either a misunderstanding or you're intentionally going back to that. So,
I don't want to gloss over this. I'm
happy to give you clarity on whatever you want. So on the question of sperm rights, how does that follow? If you think that you can, determine whether a currently non-existent being has a right to life by projecting your mind into its future self and saying, I would like to live, then sperm should have a right to life. That's the connection to sperm rights. And then to answer your other question, which I've already answered, but I'll do it again. You're saying, would I rather have, unethical situation where I'm bred into existence, I live a good life, and then I get stabbed at the end, or not exist at all? I would prefer to exist, but I don't think that makes it ethical. I don't think that therefore it's ethical to just stab someone to death. And if the condition were either you can breed humans into existence like that or not, my position would be not.
It's very, you're not following your own framework. You're not following your own golden rule by doing to the chickens and the other livestock what you would want done to yourself, which is to be able to exist if that's an option. That's why I'm stuck on this, because you don't seem inconsistent in how you're applying your ethics and morality based on the framework we established, which is the golden rule.
I'm trying to just get what you're saying right there. You're saying that because I would want to live as opposed to not live, that I should let the animals live.
Exactly. It's very simple.
Well, no, because the actual position that I would hold for myself, if this question were on the table of we either bring Isaac into existence and have to stab him or we don't. I mean, I think as much as I would probably prefer to be alive, I don't think that is ethical, and I don't support that.
That's such a nonsensical answer.
Okay, wait. Let me push back on that. Do you support breeding humans into existence on the condition that you stab them to death at the end of their life and eat their body?
No.
Okay, so if you don't accept that, what is the difference between a human and an animal that makes it ethical for the animal? And if that difference were applied to a human, would you now consider it ethical to do that to a human, or is your position inconsistent?
I don't want to eat a human.
Okay, so let's assume that you want to eat a human. Is it now ethical? If not, then it can't be the eating per se that makes it ethical.
I don't think that it's ethical to, I mean, we're going in circles here, but I don't think it's ethical to breed humans.
I actually don't agree that we're going in circles, because now we're on to the core ethical question, in my view. So if you're, I mean, you don't consider it, like, I'm just asking, what is it about the animals that makes it okay to do this to them? You're saying it's not okay for a human to breed them into existence on the condition they get stabbed to death at the end of their life. So I'm asking, what is it about animals that makes it okay to do it to them? And if that thing were applied to humans, would it now become ethical for humans?
It's the fact that men impose their will on nature. That's just like, you know what I'm saying?
Okay, wait. So you're saying that the thing that justifies doing this to animals, the difference between animals and humans that justifies doing it is that humans want to impose their will on nature?
There's a demand for it.
Okay, so if there's a demand for human flesh, do you support doing that to humans,
isn't.
or would you reject it?
A demand for human flesh. That's
Okay. Wait, but you're 1 sec. You're saying that the thing that makes it ethical for the animals is the demand. So we're just asking now, if there were demand for human flesh, would it become ethical, or is it in fact not the demand that makes it ethical?
if the demand existed on a mass scale, such as it does with animals, then the demand would be there for a reason. So, see, the problem is
wait, 1 sec. 1 sec. Wait, LP.
Oversimplified.
LP, that wasn't an answer. You just gave a descriptive answer. You said if the demand would be there, it would be there, or something like this. I'm asking you, is it ethical if there's a demand for human flesh to breed humans into existence, stab them to death, and consume their flesh?
There is no demand.
That's not an answer. If there were a demand, would it be ethical? That's the question.
This is the problem with the question, is that if there was I'm not finished, am I? If there was a demand, there would be a reason for the demand. In other words, if maybe we need to do it because that's the only possible way we can have food.
Okay, wait. So right there, one sec.
Of there being a demand.
1 sec. So you gave a descriptive answer there for at the start. You said if there was a demand, there would be some kind of reason for it. So that's not an answer to the question, obviously. And then you said
no,
maybe there
the reason
need.
is relevant.
And when you say need, that's putting a separate factor onto the table. So you had demand and then you went to need. So just before we go to need, let's just start with demand. So again, I'm not trying to be rude, but please don't dodge the question. It's a very clear question. Your answer should be a yes or no, and then an explanation if you want. It shouldn't be a tangent. So I'm asking you, you agree that it's wrong to breed a human into existence, stab them to death, and consume their corpse?
In general,
you think that it's, like we can all find crazy philosophical situations where it's justified. But I'm trying to find out if it's justified in the animal context by any factor that's actually present in that situation. So you agree that it's wrong in general to breed a human into existence, stab them to death, and consume their flesh. So I'm asking, what is it about an animal that makes it okay to do to them? And if we apply that difference to a human, does it become ethical, or is that difference, in fact, not the thing that justifies it? So the one you put on the table initially was demand. So we apply that to humans. There's now a demand for human flesh. Is it now, in your mind, ethical? Please don't answer by saying it would be there because there's a demand. I'm asking you, do you think that that is ethical?
I don't think that ethics exists in a vacuum. I think that there's a set of circumstances that formulate the ethical framework that we function within. Therefore, the reason for the demand is relevant to the answer to the question.
Now, LP, I don't mean to be rude. I honestly don't. So, I mean, maybe you'll take it like that, but it's really not my intention. But I just want to ask you honestly, do you think that you just answered the question?
It's like asking me if killing people is ethical.
I just asked you if you answered the question, and you didn't even answer that question. You didn't answer the initial question.
I'm trying to explain to you the problem with your question.
Well, LP, just to be totally legit, you're trying to explain your way out of answering the question because you know your answer is bad. Demand does not justify murder. I think you know that. Come on.
There's no demand for human flesh, man.
That's okay, and that is not the answer. So I'm asking, if there were demand, why would you say it's ethical? That is not an answer. That is not an answer. If there were demand,
saying you're not answering my question.
No, that's because I asked my question first, and I haven't gotten an answer to it. I'm happy to answer whatever you want to ask.
Question because it's incomplete.
That's not LP. It's a simple question. I'm saying, if there were demand for human,
nonsensical question.
Okay, even that's not a fucking answer to the question. And even if you're going to say, oh, it depends on why the demand exists, then your position, what you're saying implicitly there is that some types of demand would justify it and some wouldn't, which would mean that demand per se is not the justification.
Right. That's fine.
Okay, so you acknowledge that demand does not justify murder.
It depends on the reason for the demand.
Okay, wait, no, but the reason for the demand, then that whatever that thing is, that would be the supposed justification. Demand itself clearly can't be.
Just a sec.
Yeah, just take your time, think it out. But like the other thing I want to say is like I don't mean to get too heated. I'm not going to say this anymore, but like I don't think you've spent a lot of time with this topic, so don't be scared to just like acknowledge wrong spots in your thinking. This is what I would do if I were like going into some topic that I don't know a whole lot about with someone who spent a lot of time with it. If they started saying things that left me completely silent without an answer, I would cave on some of those things. I would say, you know what, I don't have an answer to that, or you know what, my answer was bad. That's a fair thing to do.
The reason I'm having trouble with this question, and I don't remember if I mentioned this at the start, but
Sure.
I'm essentially nihilistic when it comes to moral and ethics.
Okay. Well, that's actually an answer to the question right there. So if
something along the lines of I don't care about animal rights, maybe is which is like what I was trying to say. So
yeah, I mean, it's a little different. One is saying I don't care. One is saying I am a nihilist, but I get that they're similar.
Right. So that's my problem with it. It's like I explained to you. If my only way to exist was to be bred, then I would choose that for that person. But because there's no demand for it, that's not a dichotomy. That's not a set of circumstances that exists in the real world, unlike the animals, which is a real set of circumstances that exist, not some hypothetical thought experiment.
Okay, but LP, I mean, you have to acknowledge though, just trying to say the hypothetical is too absurd, so you know that I don't have to really deal with it.
It's very absurd to suggest that we would choose to breed humans. I
think that it is absurd, and I think it's obviously wrong. I mean, the point is though, it doesn't matter what if the hypothetical is absurd. It matters if the hypothetical exposes a contradiction in your position, right? So just to take a basic example, I'm sure you'll agree with this. I mean, I'd be very surprised if you don't. If someone says they're a pacifist and you say, okay, someone's trying to rape your mom, the only way to stop them is to use force. Do you support using force? If they say yes to that question, they are not a pacifist. It doesn't matter that the situation's absurd. It doesn't matter that their mom isn't currently being raped, that's not happening. If they said, oh, my mom's not being raped, that would not be an answer to the question. It would show that they aren't a pacifist because there is a condition where they would violate the principle of pacifism. So just the suggestion that hypotheticals can be kind of dismissed, I really don't accept that. If a hypothetical shows a contradiction in your position, that is a serious problem. And I'd like to deal with nihilism, but if you want to come back on that, you're welcome to.
I guess I'll just repeat what I said, which is that if that hypothetical was real, then yes, and I had to be bred to be stabbed or to not exist, I would choose to be bred to be stabbed. So it's not unethical in that under that framework that we've established.
Yeah, but I don't think that anything that you would choose over another option is automatically ethical. I mean, I would choose to live. I'd prefer that than not to live, but I don't support doing this to humans. I don't think it's an ethical thing to do. So what I'm going from is you explicitly oppose that policy for humans. You say it's not justified to breed them into existence for the purpose of killing them when they're young, slitting their throats, and eating their bodies. So I ask you, what is it about animals that justifies this? If we applied it to humans, would it justify it? So the first thing you said was demand, and you've agreed at this point, unless you want to backtrack or whatever, you've agreed that demand per se, that's not a justification for murder. And then the other thing that you kind of threw out, at one point you said need, so we can come around to need, but you also had talked about I don't care and nihilism. So I'll just kind of take those both at once. Like, let's just say, the argument is, I believe in nihilism. I don't think morals exist objectively, which I also, descriptively, I'm a nihilist. You don't think that it's okay to murder a human and, do you accept someone saying, oh, nihilism, though, and then breeding a human, raising them, stabbing them to death, and consuming their corpse? Or is nihilism, though, not a valid justification?
Why would they do that?
Man, I don't mean to be rude, but that is not an answer to the question. Saying why would they do that?
I'm not trolling you here. It's that I find it hard to make decisions on questions where I don't have a complete picture of what it is you're talking about.
You know what I honestly think? I think that you're kind of stumped by the question, and I think that you don't want to just back up and think I might be wrong about veganism. This is Well, you can. I'll let the audience judge if you think that's laughable. Personally, that's what I'm getting off this conversation. So again, I mean, I'm just trying to deal with your justifications as you present them.
Look,
so
it's not that I'm stumped.
Okay.
I told you from the start, I believe humans are entitled to different rights than animals.
I do too. Yeah.
So there's no inconsistency with me being okay with breeding and eating animals and not being okay with breeding and eating humans, because I don't grant those rights to not be bred and eat to animals, but I would grant it to humans in general.
That was a bit of a logical leap, though, and I hope you'll appreciate this. The leap is that you're saying, I believe in different rights for humans and animals. I do too, for the record. I don't think animals should have a right to vote, just to take a basic example. And then you said, because I believe in different rights, therefore it's not inconsistent to be okay with killing animals. That's a logical leap. Because the thing is, what is the...
Not at all.
Well, just the fact that you support different rights doesn't necessarily mean that now it's a consistent extension of your position to stab animals to death.
Well, we've established that it is, though. Like that's my framework.
That's exactly what I'm challenging. That's precisely what I'm challenging. I'm looking to see if your position is consistent. So I'm asking you,
your position is consistent.
Wait. I'm just come on for a sec. I'm just saying you say that it is wrong to breed a human into existence, stab them to death when they're young, and consume their corpse. So I'm asking you, what is it that makes it okay for an animal? We agree they have different rights. That's fine. But I'm saying, what makes it okay? You said demand. Now, we've taken that off the table because you said actually demand doesn't work. So then you said nihilism. So I'm saying, okay, if someone says nihilism, though, and then they breed, raise, stab, and eat a human, do you accept that?
No, the difference is the set of circumstances that
it's not an answer.
Necessitate that
you're dodging.
That predicate the existence of that animal versus the set of circumstances that predicate the existence of a human. We just don't breed humans, man.
LP, I'm just going to ask you, do you think that you just answered my question?
I think that I've answered the question within your moral framework of the golden rule many, many times.
Well, no. I mean, you just keep going back to the same statement.
So there's two frameworks. There's yours and there's mine. And within your framework, it's okay to do that because we're
to do what?
To breed humans for stabbing. Because
no, it's not. I don't accept that.
Yeah,
just because
just because you would choose it for yourself.
I would prefer it to getting just no life at all, but that doesn't mean that
therefore it's moral if those are the only choices. And the reason it's important to point out that those are the only choices is because that's the situation for the farm animals. Either we breed them to eat or they don't exist.
Well, I see you going back to this. I'm assuming it's because you feel like comfortable here or something, or you think I don't fucking know. But I mean, I've addressed it multiple times. So I'm telling you, to be clear, yeah, it seems to me like if I had a choice, I would rather live and then have my rights violated. But do I actually support a world where we violate rights like that? No. So if you're giving me two unethical situations and you're saying, well, I don't even agree that non-existence is necessarily not ethical, but whatever. Just if you give someone two unethical situations and you say, which would you prefer?
Wait,
it doesn't matter what they say. That doesn't actually demonstrate that the thing is ethical, right?
So you think it is unethical to not breed animals?
Sorry, I need to think about that because there's two negatives there. Unethical to not breed animals. So ethical to breed animals? I think it's ethical to breed animals. Is that what you're asking?
You say no, you think it's unethical to not breed animals.
Unethical to not breed.
Yeah.
So isn't that the same as saying ethical to breed?
Not precisely, but that's the opposite.
Sorry, I'm just trying to semantically get my head around what you're saying there. I don't support breeding, generally speaking.
You said that I've offered you two unethical choices. One in which you're not bred, and one in which you are, and then we eat.
Yeah, well, I just acknowledged I don't necessarily think there's something wrong with not breeding animals.
Right, so that's not two unethical choices in your mind. One is ethical and one is unethical.
Well, yeah, one's just neutral, basically.
But you yourself would choose the unethical option if you were in that position.
And how is that at all? Like, what are you getting to from there?
That it's not, that you're not, that's the inconsistency in your position.
It's not an inconsistency on any level at all. I mean, yeah, I would sooner live.
You're not treating these animals in that position the way that you would want to be treated. That's the inconsistency.
Well, I wouldn't actually even support a society that treats me like that. If you're just saying,
cop-out answer. That's the cop-out answer.
Whoa, wait. Calling it a cop-out is not, I mean, I don't understand that at all. I'm telling you that I do not support that world. If it's a choice of, I mean, if you're asking me from my
logically inconsistent, because you're saying that you support a world in which the thing you would choose isn't an option.
How is that? I don't see what you're saying there.
You're contradicting yourself, because you admit you would rather live, and I think that these farm animals would rather live than to not exist. But you're saying that you don't want to live in a world where they get what they want.
Let me show you what's wrong with this. So I'll give you two options. So you have a choice of either being raised and being tortured to death and then murdered, or you have a choice of being raised and then murdered. So presumably you'd pick the situation where you just get murdered and not tortured to death. But do you actually accept breeding individuals in that situation?
The problem with that is it's a different question, because
well, no, it's just showing that the fact that you might, from your subjective angle, be like, yeah, I mean, that's better than not existing. It doesn't mean you would actually support having a world that is like that.
Yeah, but it's not a reality. You ask these hypothetical things that aren't my hypothetical.
That is a cop-out.
It's based on reality. This is the reality and this is the difference. You keep asking, what's the difference? It's that this is the set of circumstances that define the reality for these animals.
Okay, that is just a big, broad nothing statement. If you say this is the set of circumstances that justify the reality for the slaves, you'd be like, what the fuck? That's just a vague nothing statement. That's not a fucking argument. So to get back on point, I'm just going to have to leave this in the hands of the audience. If anyone thinks that that's a dodge to say, I would sooner live and get killed than not live, but I definitely do not support a world that's like that. And I understand if it would result in being,
it's totally contradictory, because what you're really saying is you wouldn't want to live.
I think you're trying to make it seem contradictory.
It's absolutely contradictory. You're saying this is what I want, but I don't want that. I don't want it.
Oh, well, I literally just tried to explain this to you. There's situations where you're going to say that you would prefer something over another thing. That doesn't mean that it's ethical or that you actually think the world should be like that.
Yeah, but you're crafting scenarios that aren't based on reality. So
and that's you totally changing to another point. So
no, I'm not. I'm pointing out how you were just like you're creating this totally irrelevant scenario to prove that what you're trying to say is consistent, but it's not based on reality. It's something. It's always these absurd things that you have to craft in order to sound consistent.
Well, again, it's just a vague nothing statement. I don't know what you're talking about. So let's just
you know what I'm talking about, man.
Okay, well, if you want to keep dwelling here, you're welcome to, show me what you're talking about. But I've given you a perfectly coherent answer multiple times. So you ask me, you say, would you rather be born and then eventually killed, or not born at all?
Right. You agree with me. So therefore, you agree that it's not immoral for me to eat these animals because I'm giving them what they want.
LP,
I don't see why. Okay, where's the disconnect for you?
Okay,
that's their only choice. The choice presented to you, that's the only choice these animals have.
The disconnect is that I would not support that world. If you create a situation where it's the only choice for humans, I don't support that world. And you don't either. You've said that you don't.
No, I would choose to live if that was my choice.
You know full well that I'm talking about the policy that we put in place. The fact that you would choose one shitty situation over another, that doesn't mean that the shitty situation is ethical. I mean, surely you can acknowledge
Ethics don't enter into it at all. Ethics have nothing to do with it.
That is just what is that? What are you saying?
I'm saying that this is the only choice. This is the only choice. And if you choose that, then you are granting that it's okay to do that. Because
if we assume it's the only choice for some humans, there's some humans who are only going to be created if we stab them to death and eat them. I do not support doing that.
But you choose it for yourself.
I mean, it's just, I don't know why you're getting hung up on that. I've answered it multiple times. The fact that I would choose something over another situation, that doesn't mean that the thing is ethical, LP. I mean, you would probably choose to get fucking murdered sooner than you choose to get
established of doing.
Okay, LP, let me show this to you.
You've shifted the framework of what is ethical to just your personal preference rather than what we established at the start. That's the problem. We established a framework we were going to operate in, which is treating others the way we would want to be treated. And now you're changing it to, well, I just don't want to support a world like that. Even though you admit if you had to face this real choice that is what exists for these animals in the world that we live in, that you would choose to be bred and exist and become food. So you're not extending these animals the courtesy of letting them have that same thing that you would choose for yourself. You're not allowing them to have the gift of life that you yourself would choose for yourself.
If I had a choice between being
the golden rule, mate.
If I had a choice between being raped to death or just murdered, I would choose getting just murdered. That does not mean that murder is ethical, and it doesn't mean that I support murder as a position.
If
you can't wrap your head around
that's not relevant. That is not relevant to anything we're talking about.
It's completely relevant. It demonstrates that pointing to two situations and saying you'd prefer one over the other doesn't mean that it's ethical.
I'm not talking about a hypothetical situation. I'm talking about the reality of farming animals for food.
First of all, the central thing that is being dodged this whole time is initially we were going to talk about nihilism, so I want to get back to that. But this is a point that you should be able to receive. This should land. The fact that you would pick one situation over another does not mean that it's ethical. Will you please concede that?
It is within the framework that we established of treating others the way we would want to be treated. Can you concede?
Wait. I don't. The way that you would want to be treated if you have a choice between two fucking weird situations. I don't support.
It's not weird. It's the reality for these animals. Your examples are weird. My example is reality, factually based.
There's nothing remotely weird about my example. I mean, I don't know how.
It's not based in reality.
LP, let me
one of us is operating in reality right now.
That's not an argument. I want to get a clear.
Fact. It's not an argument.
LP, I want to get a clear answer from you on this question. You understand that if you have a choice between two situations and you pick one over the other, that does not mean that it's ethical.
If those are the only two choices that you have, and you're picking the one that you would want for yourself for somebody else, then it is ethical because that's the framework we established.
I'm not sure I even follow what you're saying there. Can you say that again?
If you only have two choices, right? This is the reality of your existence. You have to choose one of these two things, and you choose the one for somebody else that you would choose for yourself, then you're doing the most ethical thing available for you. Just like if you choose for somebody else to be murdered rather than for somebody else to be raped to death, you're choosing the most ethical thing for that person based on the options that you have presented.
Okay, I think I might. You see what I'm saying? I think I might understand what the problem is here. So we're almost talking on two different levels here. It seems like
we're talking about choosing the most ethical choice based on what we have available to work.
Well, a minute ago, you're trying to say ethics doesn't enter into it, but we'll just forget about that.
I'm trying to like communicate with you on your level because you keep hammering on about ethics.
Well, ethics are pretty important, I would say. Ethics are the reason that you're treated well and that you're not in some fucking horrible situation.
So do you get what I'm saying though?
I get what you're saying, but I think that there's a big misunderstanding on your part because
it doesn't matter if they're both unethical. You choose the one that's the least unethical.
The bigger thing though is that the bigger thing, yeah, but wait, the bigger thing though is LP. When my personal preferences come into conflict with how I would actually want the world to be structured, I'm not going to err on the side of my preferences. So like there's
it's not your preference
because you're looking there's two levels. There's the level of what is the world that you support living in, which is the world I'm talking on, and then there's the level of what would your personal preference be in this situation. So you're looking at my answer to the personal preference thing. You're saying, well, you would prefer to live than to not live, even if your life involves being stabbed to death, and then therefore there's some inconsistency when you say that you don't support that for other people or for animals. But I'm not even talking on that level. I'm talking on the level of what is the world that I actually want to create? What is the ethical system that I support?
It's, to me, again, it just seems like a huge contradiction to me. It seems like a way of avoiding, like conceding that you think these animals should have life.
I do not think that you should have a life if it's contingent on being murdered. I understand why, like, I get what you're thinking here.
It's better than not having a life at all.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about a factory farm situation, no, I don't think. I think it's better to not even exist.
Well, okay, but so I would rather exist on the factory farm. So for me, there's no moral inconsistency with eating an animal from a factory farm because I would choose that for myself rather than not.
Sorry, one second. You would like to live on a factory farm sooner than not live. Do you understand what a factory farm is like?
Absolutely, without question.
You understand you're essentially saying like, yeah, I'd like to live in basically a concentration camp sooner than not live.
I said that at the very beginning when we talked about Auschwitz.
Okay, I mean, I'm just going to let the audience evaluate that. I think that you've probably lost most people there. I think most people would not like to live in a concentration camp.
Versus not live. You're changing your position from the start. You said that most people would choose to go to Auschwitz.
I mean, you're just playing little fucking word games. Like I've literally told you.
You're shifting your.
Okay, well, one second. Why don't you? I'm not shifting. I'm being perfectly clear with you.
Did you not at the start of this conversation say that most people would choose to go to Auschwitz rather than die? Did you not say that?
You're forgetting a key variable. Can you remember what that is?
Because they hope they escape. That's irrelevant.
That is LP. That is massively relevant. And I never said most. I said that there would be
most. Come on now.
If I said most, I don't think I said most. I think I said that some people.
Well, we know we know it is most people would choose life over death.
Wait, but it's not just life over death. You keep leaving things out. If you're gonna say people would prefer to live on Auschwitz than to die. My answer to that, and I'll get to the other version. My answer to that would be I do not think that most people would want that. If you're going to say you have a choice of either living on Auschwitz with a chance of escape or not, then I think, yeah, there's some fraction of people who would be okay with that. I highly doubt that it's most. I don't think I ever said most to that specific question.
I think you did, or the vast majority, or some kind of phrase like that. But it doesn't matter because what's important is that I would choose it for myself, and therefore there's no inconsistency with me applying that logic to the animals based on our framework that we established.
Okay, well, firstly, I just want to clear up this like thing that you seem to think is some kind of gotcha, because there's a bit of like there's multiple points kind of on the table right now. So you understand that there is a separation between my preferences and the world that I would like.
I mean, that just sounds like idealism.
LP, look, if you have a choice, there's a fucking burning house, and you have a choice of either your kid gets saved or just some other person in the house gets saved. Your preference is going to be that your kid gets saved. When it comes to how we create laws...
It just sounds like such a...
Wait, man, come on, let me finish my sentence. When it comes to how we create laws, when we talk about the actual world we want to structure, you understand that you don't want to structure that world around just some random person, even if it's you, your personal preferences. You want to structure it around concepts like fairness, right? You want the people to save whoever is most savable, or something like this, or you'd care about saving maybe a baby over an old person or something like this. But you're not going to say there's just one fucking bloodline or something that should be saved in the building. So I'm just pointing out that your preferences do not always align with the world you want to create. And I consistently always opt for the world I want to create over my preferences. So when you go to the world you want to create versus your preferences, and you say there's a tension there in terms of what you choose in the factory farm life with death at the end, or no life, there's really no contradiction at all, because I consistently in all situations will always override my personal preferences for the world that I want to create.
Well,
do you accept that? Do you agree? Is that, I mean, it seems like pretty fair answer to what you're saying.
I accept it for you, but we disagree, because I choose life above everything else.
Okay, well, let's get on to that. But first, I'm asking you if you still detect this inconsistency, or if you understand the two levels to this conversation, and that I'm consistently saying that the level of the society you want to create, that is the overriding value over your personal preferences.
To me, it seems inconsistent, because you're not. Okay, I get what you're saying.
Thank you. Good.
It just doesn't. It's inconsistent within the framework that we established.
Well, it's not inconsistent, because when I'm talking about treating animals as you want to be treated, I mean, I'm not talking about just your weird primate fucking preferences in these situations. I'm talking about the world that you want to create, the world that you want to live in.
Yeah, the world you want to live in is one where you get to live.
Well, the thing is, if you ask me which would I prefer, it's like I would like to live. But if you ask me which world do you want to structure, and if structuring the world like that is going to result in you not living, would you accept that? My answer to that is yes.
Well, see, my answer to that is no. I want to live like above everything.
Okay, well, I just want to get this question of inconsistency off the table, and then let's get on to nihilism, and then let's get on to you would accept this for yourself. I see three things right now that we need to discuss.
It's no longer inconsistent if you're willing to sacrifice your existence for a better world or whatever. What you view as a better world. Well, I'm not willing to do that.
Well, wait. When I'm looking for logical consistency, I'm looking for it at the level of the world that you want to structure. If you look at the level of preferences, we have all sorts of fucking weird preferences. So I would always override the preferences for creating the moral world. So even if you can find a situation where it's like, I would prefer if this thing happened, like I'd prefer if it were my kid who gets saved from the building, which would I rather have, my kid or some other kid? I'd prefer mine. That doesn't mean that I actually support the world where that is what happens. I would support a world where it's equal.
I'd absolutely support the world where my kid gets saved over somebody else's. I don't understand how you can claim otherwise. It doesn't even seem honest.
You would want a fire department, for example, to have a special mandate to save your child over other children?
Obviously, yes. Absolutely.
Okay. I think that is a pretty absurd position. I understand that you would.
Well, it is because it's an absurd scenario. That's all you do is create absurd scenarios. But if you're giving me that choice,
it's really not an argument. Absurd though is not an argument. So I'm just with that specific situation. If you're going to say that you want your personal preferences enshrined as like policy for how our institutions and government operate, I mean, that seems crazy to me. It seems like
I recognize that's
come on,
realistic.
Like that. Yeah, we could all say I would love if the police would just prioritize me in every situation. It's like, yeah, but do you actually think that, would you actually go and argue for that position? I mean, surely you agree when it comes to how we should argue
for that position.
Well, exactly. When it comes to how you would actually want the world to be structured, right. You want the police to operate on a basis of fairness. Or the firemen, you want them to save whoever is most savable or something like this. You don't want them to be making arbitrary decisions based on bloodline. I mean, surely.
I would want. Kind of like, it's just that I can't have that, and I accept that.
Well, I would actually suggest that maybe you want that, but you have a higher want for a world where we actually have fair institutions.
No,
Is
I'm
that not a
some
fair
kind
thing
of
to say?
idealist like you. I wouldn't sacrifice me or my child in the name of idealism.
Wait. But so sorry, just to be clear, you would prefer if we set up a fire department that has a policy of always saving your child. You don't want it to be
I
a
said
fire
yes.
department that
I said I
operates.
would prefer that, but it's absolutely ridiculous and it's never going to happen. It's totally absurd.
See, what you're trying to do is you're saying I would prefer it, but it's absurd. So it's not what I want. But what I really think,
no, I want it, but it's never going to happen. It's utterly absurd.
You know what I think? I think that you're trying to take it off the table by saying that it's absurd. But I think the real reason you're taking it off the table, I think the real reason you're taking
realistic.
I think the real reason you're taking it off the table is because you actually probably understand that that would be a bad way to structure society. You
Only
probably,
if it was somebody else's kid who got preference over mine.
don't you think that we should have institutions that operate fairly, that don't just arbitrarily discriminate based on bloodline?
Yeah, because that's the most fair. That I agree with that.
Okay. So the principle of fairness overrides your personal preferences. That's all I'm saying.
No, because that's not only fair, but like I think most of us can agree to that compromise. You know what I'm saying? It's because the other option of me getting preferential treatment isn't an option that I have. So that's off the table because it doesn't exist. So now I have to go for what's realistic.
You ultimately prefer that world, though. You're saying, yeah, like we can agree on.
I prefer the world where me, LP, gets preferential treatment, but that's not an option. It's just not an option, full stop. So there's no point thinking about it. I'd prefer to have like a 13-inch dick, but it's not an option. You know what I mean? Like, so why think about it?
I do mean, you're going to be fucking hitting bottom a lot if it's that long. I don't think that's desirable, but that's beside the point. I
had to go up from the 10 I already have, so you know how it is.
Okay. So yeah,
you get what I'm saying, though.
I'm just the whole question is, is there some kind of inconsistency when someone says, I have this preference, but I would override my personal preference with, I care more about how society is structured. And so when we go to like a kid in a house that's burning down situation, everyone's preference would be, I fucking hope they save my kid. But most people will override that preference and say, the fair thing to do is to have the cops be indiscriminate in who they save.
No, it's not inconsistent if you sincerely believe that you would rather not exist in order to have the world crafted that you would want to have crafted. It's not inconsistent, but I don't believe that. So it's not inconsistent. It's that I have a disagreement.
And okay, we can get onto that, but also you're going to the animal condition right there. I'm just talking generally about the fact that you can have two levels on the table. Well, we will be on topic. I'm still aware of the other two topics we have to hit. We have to hit nihilism, and then we have to talk about this whole notion that you would accept this for yourself. But right now, I'm just trying to deal with this whole notion that there's some kind of inconsistency. So I'm glad. It sounds like you're agreeing there's not. I just want to make sure we're clear on it.
You've sort of changed your position to prioritize idealism over your personal preferences. So
okay, well, I would literally just say go look through my video history. It's not a position change. I've said things along
the history of this conversation where you started off saying that you would choose to live, but you wouldn't want that world to exist. And then you finally said you would choose not to live in order for the world you want to exist to be the world. Like when you changed your answer, to saying that you would choose to not live,
there's no change.
Inconsistent.
There's no change at all.
Okay. You did. You said that you would actually not want to exist because you don't want that world to exist, which is changing from you would choose to exist. So,
no, you're asking me what would I prefer, and I'm asking you what would you still choose? Answering the same. I'm still answering the same way. I would prefer to.
No, you've changed the answer. You're choosing to not exist because you don't want that world to be realized.
Well, of course, but that's not an answer change. My preference is still, my preference is still that I would like to exist, but it's overridden by higher value. Ultimately.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
And the higher value still has to do with ethical consistency. It's just What I care about is consistency in terms of how we want to structure the world, not just our personal preferences.
Right. Well,
And
I'm just.
I mean, this is not a change of position. You can look through my video history. I've said many times that personal preferences are not the be all end all. I mean, you would override them for higher values.
Well, higher values, okay, but all right, yeah, okay, all right, okay, I'll give you that. Like, it's not inconsistent.
Okay.
If that's sincerely,
no,
if you sincerely would rather not exist than to have a world where your existence is predicated on suffering, then that's your choice to make.
Yeah, man. No. I mean, it seems like there's some kind of confusion here. Like, I personally, if you're going to ask me, would you rather exist or not? I'd be like, yeah, I'd rather exist. But if you ask me what world do I support, I'm going to say a world where that doesn't happen. So a world where I don't exist.
Support.
And if you're going to say,
what is support, man? Which one are you choosing? Which one are you choosing?
And if you're going to say there's two different answers there, I'm telling you, the personal preferences always get overridden by the how do you want to structure the world.
So then you're choosing to not exist.
But it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that my preference isn't to exist.
Yeah, I don't care about your preference. I care about your choice. That your choice is what matters.
Yeah, no, I would choose to structure the fair world. And if the fair world means me not existing, then fine.
Okay, so we disagree on how we would choose then.
Okay, so we'll get on to that. So if you agree it's not inconsistent, that is good. So let's talk about nihilism, because that came up first, and then let's talk about what you would choose. So with nihilism, I mean, surely you understand that saying nihilism, though, that's not a justification for stabbing a human to death and consuming their corpse.
No, I'm not like completely nihilistic. It's just that I think that
nihilistic when it's convenient.
No, ethics are relative based on the options that you have available, and morality is flexible. It's not rigid.
It's not really an answer, though, is it? Right. So I'm just asking: do you accept nihilism, though, as a reason to kill a human?
No.
Okay, so then it can't be nihilism, though, per se, that justifies killing animals, or else you'd be inconsistent.
Okay.
Okay, sweet. Wait, is that an okay confirmation, or just a okay vegan? Let's just move off the point.
Yeah, both. I don't.
Oh, okay, no, that's fine as long as
it's a confirmation. I'll just give you it because I don't care.
Okay, fair enough. So now it's just coming down to what is it you want to talk about? You say that you would sooner live in that situation. So okay, now this is kind of almost going to go back to what we talked about a minute ago, because I would also tell you that's my personal preference. But do I actually support structuring a world like that? No, I don't. And I think that overrides my personal preference. So with you presumably, and I think you confirmed this earlier, do not support creating a world where we stab humans to death early in their life, we breed them into existence, and we consume their corpses. Just for the sake of argument, that is something you agree with, correct?
Yeah, that's not my personal preference.
No, I mean, if you look at just me in isolation, it wouldn't be mine either. But that is obviously, yeah. So okay, so the question is, what is it about animals? What's the difference between humans and animals that makes it ethical to do this to them, to breed them into existence, stab them to death when they're young, and then consume their corpses? What makes that okay for animals?
The fact that it's better than the alternative of not existing.
But you don't think that justifies it in the human context?
It would there's two different things. I would choose that if that was my option. If those were my choices, I would choose that. But those are not choices that reflect reality. Unlike when we talk about animals, we're reflecting reality. So
yeah, but you have to understand, saying it does or doesn't reflect reality, that's really beside the point, right? Because
no, I don't think so at all.
No, because if we create the same situation, and you're going to say I actually don't support this, then that would it would, if we create the same situation and you're not on board with your justification, that shows that there's a problem with the justification you're using, right? So I'm just trying to zero in on what exactly it is you're saying here. So you're saying what exactly is the reason that it's okay to do this to animals?
Because that's the only way they get to exist.
Okay, and if the only way that humans get to exist is to bring them into life, stab them to death,
it's not the only way humans get
to.
It is an answer. It is an answer.
Okay, let me reiterate the question and your answer.
When I say that's the only way to farm, I'm reflecting reality. When you say, "Well, what if this was the only way humans?" and it's like it's a stupid question because it doesn't reflect reality. It's like saying, "What if there was no gravity?" I don't know, man. Who cares?
LP, when I hear people say stupid question to a very clear hypothetical, what I hear is I don't have an answer. So I'm just going to repeat what was just said there. So I asked you, what is it about animals that justifies bringing them into existence, stabbing them to death when they're young, and consuming their corpse? So what is it that you said in response to that? You said I said, and would it be justified for humans? And you're saying that's not the situation for humans. So that is not an answer. Saying that's not the situation, that's not an answer to a question of, if this were the situation, do you support it?
I'm saying that the existence of humans isn't predicated on being forcefully bred and then stabbed.
Okay, let's say that we could increase the amount of humans. If there were humans who could only live if we breed them, kill them when they're young, and consume their corpses, do you support breeding those humans into existence?
No, it's not my preference. I don't want.
Of course, it's not mine either. So what exactly is it about animals that makes it okay for them?
I want to eat animals.
Okay, now I will give you respect because that is an honest answer. I'm glad we're not talking some philosophical bullshit about fucking nihilism or demand or something like that. At this point, I consider that an honest answer. You want to eat them. It's still a bad answer though, because if someone wants to eat you, do you think it's justified to be bred into existence, killed when you're young, and then consumed?
If that's the only way I get to exist, then yes.
Again, you're shifting to your preferences instead of the world you want to create. So do you support creating a world like that? Would you accept that?
There's no need or desire or demand to create a world like that. And so I guess the answer is no, the short answer.
Okay,
but it is predicated on my personal preference of not wanting to eat humans.
Well, just to be clear though, so you were saying the justification for the animals is that you want to eat them. So we create a situation where people want to eat you.
That's what creates the demand, that creates the dichotomy that they only get to exist if we grant that they will be eaten at some point.
Yes, and if we create a hypothetical where humans are in that situation, you tell me no, it's not ethical.
Because because I don't want to eat humans.
Okay, so if I understand, but we assume that there are people who do want to eat those humans.
Where are these people?
That's not an answer. You're going, where does this exist in reality? I'm creating a hypothetical.
Right. If there was a society where they decided to do that because they wanted to eat it, I would be against that because...
Good. Me too.
Yeah.
I would. So, I would suggest that all of your basic moral principles and intuitions would probably cut in the direction of veganism if you weren't held up by wanting to eat the meat.
Veganism. Not veganism. It's the problem that I talked about where I'm shifting frameworks between like how I actually view the world, which is that humans get better treatment than animals. And
I support that.
And your framework of just do unto others as long as you're treating them the way you would want to be treated, then it's moral.
As long as you're treating them the way you'd want to be treated in their position, right? Because not everything you want for yourself is ethical to do to someone else. Like if you're a fucking
in their position. So in the animal's position, they don't get to exist unless they agree to the trade-off of being eaten. And in their position, I would agree to that trade-off.
So I'm just looking
when you bring humans into it.
Yeah,
it's like
sorry, it's just there's these two levels because you keep switching to your preference, and we're not talking about just your preference. I mean, we're talking about how we actually want the world to be. So when you say, I do not support a world where humans are bred into existence, stabbed to death when they're young, and then consumed, but you do support that for animals, implicit in what you're saying is that there's a difference between the two that justifies it for the animals.
Yeah.
So what is that difference?
It's so hard for me to imagine a world where we need to breed humans.
Okay, we'll just assume that we had that world. Saying it's hard to imagine doesn't really answer the question.
I can't understand why we would do that, whereas I do understand why we do it for animals. So that's the problem.
Yeah, but the thing is, I just don't accept that you can't like think of this hypothetical. It's like saying I can't conceptualize the hypothetical. It's like I don't really consider that a valid answer. Like, I mean, if there were a world where humans. Well, yeah, I'm just saying
humans breed themselves, you know what I'm saying? But chickens, if we just left chickens completely on their own, they'd probably go extinct eventually.
You know, that's something I'm not totally sure about. Like, they are omnivores. They can fucking go around and eat little seeds and bugs and shit.
Or they would be massively, massively reduced in population.
That's true. Yeah,
I'm not worried about the human population. So that's one of the differences surrounding the circumstances.
Okay, wait. So before we go to, I don't understand, but before we switch on to whatever the population argument
aren't
is,
domesticated animals. You know
okay, wait. But okay, one sec. But before I'm trying to go point by point here, because we dealt with demand, we dealt with nihilism, and now we're talking about I want to eat them. I like eating them as food, which I thought was an honest answer. Not trying to be patronizing. I think that's
my part of the trade-off that justifies the breeding and the giving them the life and everything, right?
Okay.
So wait. They get to live, and I get to eat them. It's a trade-off.
Okay, but wait. So we talked about demand. We talked about nihilism. So now on this question of you propose the difference here is that you want to eat the animals, you don't want to eat the humans. So we're, again, just doing the same basic process. If that were true of humans, would that justify it for humans, or is the justification actually inconsistent?
No, the difference is that it's not true for humans, though. So you keep asking, like, what's the difference?
Wait. What's not true for humans?
I don't want to eat them.
Okay, but we
assume you're gonna say, well, what if you did? And it's like that you're trying to like change my brain to have
no. But the thing is, to me. Wait, LP, if you're saying that the thing that justifies doing it to animals is that we have a desire to eat their flesh, and then I say, okay, well, if desire to eat their flesh is the justification, let's apply that to humans and see if it works. And then you're saying, that desire doesn't exist. You're trying to change my brain.
It doesn't make exactly. It's like saying, is it ethical? Is it ethical to have consensual sex with a woman that you like?
I don't even see the connection there. But I also
and then you say yes to it, and then I say, okay, so if you want to have sex with a chicken, is it ethical? Like, that's what you're doing to me, man. It's
wait. I mean, 1 second. We can touch on that. Nonsensical, though, is not an argument. So just
it's a statement of fact.
Okay, well, it's an assertion.
Just because you want to fuck a human woman doesn't mean you want to fuck a chicken. Just because I want to eat a chicken doesn't mean I want to eat a person.
No, it does. It doesn't mean you want to eat them.
Or that it's ethical.
Wait. Well, that's where there's 1 second. That's where there's a problem. So please let me get my whole sentence out here. So if you're saying
how it's ethical to fuck chickens, I can't wait to hear this.
That's not what I'm talking about. So when you say that it's ethical to breed, stab, and consume the chickens because we want to eat them. If because we want to eat them is the justification, if that is the thing that separates humans from animals, that makes it ethical for the animals.
No, the reason it's ethical is because I would choose it for myself.
Come on. I don't want to have to start like being rude, but it's just like, I'm trying to give you room to talk. So if you just butt in on me mid-thought, like I'm just going to need to talk over you. Yeah, so let's not do that. I'll let you speak. You let me speak.
All right. I'm sorry. So, go ahead.
No, it's totally fine. Like, no hard feelings at all. So, okay. When we're talking about the justification, this is the third one, right? So we had demand, we had nihilism. Both of those are off the table now as inconsistent justifications. Now we're talking about it's just the desire to eat the animals. So if there were a desire to eat humans, would that justify eating humans? Or is desire to consume actually not a consistent basis for stabbing, killing, eating?
You have to answer my question then about whether or not it's ethical to fuck chickens.
Oh, I'm happy to answer all of your questions, but I don't want you to answer my question with a question and then we go off on a tangent. So how about you answer the question that is on the table and then we'll talk about fucking chickens.
So if I want to eat humans, is it ethical?
or you or other people, I don't care. It's just, does the fact that people want to eat humans, would that make it ethical?
No.
No. Okay, so if the question is what is the difference between humans and animals that justifies this treatment for animals, and you say the difference is that we want to eat them, well, it's actually not that, because if we apply that to humans, now they have the difference. I didn't support it.
You keep reframing my justification as all these things that are not what I'm presenting to you.
Well, I've heard three so far. I've heard you say nihilism. I've heard you say demand, and
that's because you're ignoring the real one.
Well, let's get on to that, but let's just get because I'm keeping in mind what you want to talk about. I have no interest in ignoring anything. You want to talk about fucking chickens, and you want to talk about, quote, the real one, whatever that is. We can get to both of those. I just want to deal with what you put on the table.
You really not understand what my justification is after all this time of going over and over and over it?
One sec, though, because you're kind of dodging. I'm just trying to be systematic, man. I'm trying to go point by point. Well, don't I mean, you can laugh if you want, but it's just like with the food point, you've accepted that wanting to eat something, that is not an ethical justification for doing it.
For humans.
Okay.
But this is that's a totally different issue.
Okay, wait. So if you're saying that is the justification for animals, then we're still stuck on the point of is I want to eat them, though, a valid justification. So we can't move on to this other shit if that's still on the table.
I don't consider humans and animals to be the same. You know what I'm saying? Like when I'm talking about my own personal framework. So
no, and now I feel like I need to hit this now, because you've said a few times things like, I don't consider them the same. You don't want equal rights for them. And it's like none of these are positions that most vegans hold. Most vegans don't think they're the same. They don't want equal rights for them. They want the basic rights for animals that we can't find a logically consistent justification for denying to them.
Right. You don't think they're the same, but if I don't treat animals with all the same ethical exact consideration that I give to humans, then I'm inconsistent. It doesn't make sense, man.
Well, just to point out the obvious flaw with that, didn't we just earlier talk about the animal right to vote? So you know that I don't want the same treatment for them. So I don't know why you're saying that.
Yeah, but like this is where if I were you, I would answer with some absurd thing like, "What if we give animals the right to vote? Like, what's wrong with that? Why don't we?"
Well, the logically consistent reason for not giving animals the right to vote is that I don't think that humans deserve the right to vote if they can't conceptualize voting. So just to be clear, the basis for discrimination there, inability to conceptualize voting, is applied consistently across categories. That's not what you're doing with any of your justifications. With demand, with nihilism, though, with I want to eat them, though, you are not consistent in deploying these things. So denying animals the right to vote, I'm fully consistent in my reasoning for doing that. It's based on they can't conceptualize voting. Would I deny the right to vote to humans who can't conceptualize voting? Sure, there's no inconsistency.
All right, fair enough. But I just want to point out that like my justification isn't those things you keep saying. My justification, like as I pointed out over and over and over again, is that there's a trade-off, a symbiotic relationship with the animal where the animal gets the precious divine gift of life in exchange for being eaten by me. That's my justification. Do you understand?
I'm happy to move on to that, and I'm happy to move on to fucking chickens.
Like
well, no, I mean, I think we should really hash it out.
Okay.
So, I mean, because you've said there's two more things that you want to talk about. If you ever don't want to talk about one of them, you can just let me know and we'll drop it. You said you want to talk about fucking chickens, and you said you want to talk about your like real, quote, real justification, which is something like the trade-off.
Surprised you haven't like.
Well, I mean, I'm
like applied it or like assigned.
Let's just assume that I'm fully retarded and I've missed it every time you said about it. Ooh. I still want to just hash it out. So just on the food point, I'm just looking for concession that wanting to eat something is not a ethical justification for stabbing it to death. Can you agree on that? I want to eat you. Is it ethical to stab you, eat you?
All right, sure, whatever.
But that's a bit like wavy. Like, I want a clear concession. You agree that that is not ethical.
I feel that it's ethical with animals, but not with humans. So that's the problem. Is that you're trying to insist that I treat them both with the same ethical consideration, but I don't.
No, I'm not at all. I think we just have to.
That's how it feels. That's how it feels.
Okay, well, I've already told you. Do you think I want animals to have a right to drive, religious freedom, voting, anything like that? So you know that's not my position.
Okay, but so
I want them to have things like a right to life. I want them to have things that we can't find a logically consistent justification for denying to them. So with something like voting,
but you want to deny them their existence by massively reducing the population.
I suppose so.
So it's a little sketchy. You have to admit.
Well, no, because I hold the same position for humans. This is not remotely sketchy. I don't support breeding humans into existence and then stabbing them to death and consuming their corpse. I would firmly say that that is unethical. And even if I would have a preference to live, I support the world where I do not, if that's the cost of it. So with just this justification of because you want to eat them, if you're saying, no, it's not justified for humans, but it is justified for animals, again, not saying this in a rude way, but that's you losing track of the framing of the question. So the question was, what is it that's true of animals that, if true of humans, would justify this treatment for humans? So I'm asking, what is that difference there? And when you say it's that you want to eat the animals, well, you demonstrate that that is not the justification that would also work for humans, because you reject it.
I told you over and over, the difference is that the only way the animals get to exist is if I want to eat them.
Okay, but I'm pointing out, I just want to get this point settled. And you almost conceded on it, but then you went back to fighting me on it. So you agree, hopefully, that the fact that you want to eat a being, that is not an ethical justification.
No, I'm not saying it is.
Okay, good. Okay, so let's go on to, what do you want to talk about? You want to talk about chicken sex, or you want to talk about your quote main point, or whatever you're calling it?
Is it ethical for you to have sex with a woman who consents to have sex with you?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, is it ethical for you to fuck a chicken?
No, I don't think a chicken can consent.
Okay, so it's a question.
Pretty easy answer, right?
I guess so.
Don't you agree? It's pretty. Yeah. It's a totally. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, my goal here is to get to agreement. I think I'm right. I think you're wrong. I don't want to shove anything in your face or make you be a douche to you, but I would hope we can get to agreement. So I'm glad we agree on the chicken stuff. I'm glad we agree on some other spots. So now the final thing that, at least so far, that's on the table is, you said you have some kind of core justification, and it's got to do with a trade-off. So let's hear this.
Seriously?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I'd like to hear your reasoning. And if you're going to say I've already deployed it, well, it's been in the midst of all these other things, so I've chosen to go one by one and hash them out, and now we've whittled it down to this.
Okay, so the trade-off is that the animals get to exist because I want to eat them, and then I get to eat them. So that's the trade-off, and it's ethical and moral because that existence is what the animals would choose for themselves, presumably, if they were faced with that choice.
Okay, so do you support a world where humans are bred into existence on the condition of some kind of trade-off with, say, an alien species that wants to consume them? They're going to stab them to death when they're, a few months old, like we do with animals, and consume their corpses.
You always frame things as like, do I support it, as if that matters? Mm-hmm. But if
because your preferences aren't always what you support, enshrining as the kind of code for society.
Do these aliens give a shit what I support? Like, it doesn't seem to me that they would.
That doesn't answer the question, because you're saying that the justification, the thing that makes it ethical in the animal case, is that there's a trade-off of life for food. So I'm asking, do you support killing humans if the trade-off is life for food?
For aliens, food for aliens.
Sure, we can say for aliens, we could say for some human tribe or some weird future situation. You can make whatever you want. It's just got to have that core element of there's a trade-off of life for food.
Yeah, that seems fine.
Okay, you do support that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, at that point, I think that most people will concede that I've won the debate. So if you're willing to allow humans to be murdered, that most people would say that that's a psychopathic position, and they wouldn't support you on that.
Okay, let's just delve into that a little bit.
Sure.
Okay, so these aliens that are eating us, are they more advanced, more intelligent than humans? That seems like a face. I was operating on that assumption that these are higher.
It's not essential
beings.
It's not essential to the hypothetical, but we could add that if you want to.
Okay. So, and these aliens, let's add that they need to eat us in order to survive.
Wait. Well, that's adding in a different component. I will let you continue totally, but the justification, we have to do this to survive, that's a different justification than there's a trade-off of food for life. Because we don't need to eat animals to survive. And you told me that that's not even something you believe. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I thought we
need to kill animals to survive, obviously.
Well, we don't need to
in mass kill them.
Yeah, I mean, animals die so that civilization can progress. Like I agree with that. Like, I mean, I use sometimes an analogy to humans. Like some amount of humans will die in all sorts of ways. From police, they'll die in car crashes or in construction or industrial production. So, I mean, we understand that there's some trade-off for life. We're talking about a specific type of killing, right?
Well, I mean, animals die in agriculture too, right? So animals need to die so that humans can eat.
Yeah, but it's a bit of a different situation, right? Because, and also I would just point out, this is now venturing into a third other question. So now we have three things on the table.
Well, we have
agriculture, though.
We have the aliens, because you say people would disagree with it.
Well, you're adding.
That's only because they don't want to be eaten, probably. Like that's just their personal preference.
Well, I think that most people would actually say, even if we could have a world where we could create more humans who would get to experience life, if the condition in order to do that is that they get holocausted by fucking aliens, they wouldn't support it.
What? So you're saying that if we choose to make more people, then the aliens will show up and holocaust us?
Okay, wait 1 second. And I just want to keep a good handle on the meta perspective here. So there's three things on the table now. So we're talking, you put out the need argument, so we can talk about need. You put out the field deaths argument.
I'm fleshing out the alien scenario because, like I said, I like details so that I can like form an opinion on something. You like to give really simplistic.
That's not an argument. It's not an argument.
I'm not saying it's an argument. I'm just explaining why I'm fleshing this out.
Yeah, but it's verging on just being an ad hom, because it's just like you're simplistic. It's like it's not really.
I'm not saying you're simplistic. I'm saying
no. I'm not saying like no. That's not how I mean. I just mean
the context matters. That's what I'm saying.
I'm just pointing out that just saying simplistic, though, it's not really an argument. It's like, what makes it simplistic? How is that unreasonable? You know, it's like a throwaway assertion that a lot of people hear you say and they'll be like, oh yeah, the vegan's being simplistic, but it's like, how exactly?
Okay, well, I'll rephrase it. I think that adding this context will help people decide what they really agree with. Look, okay, let's put
sure. And it's just I hear three things. I hear the need argument. I hear the animals die as a result of civilization. Wait 1 sec. I hear that, and I also hear trade-off, though. So now there's another three separate components. You can say that they're all part of you hashing out the hypothetical, but I'm just pointing out you're adding in things that make the hypothetical seem more palatable. It's like, oh, they need to do it. Well, now suddenly that's going to push people's intuitions in the direction of, fuck, it sucks, but like, they have to do it. Like it's adding a more justifiable reason to the situation.
Yeah, exactly. I'm saying the aliens do exactly what we do, which is what they need to do to survive.
Well, wait, when you say need to do to survive, but you've agreed that we don't need to be doing this to animals to survive.
But you've agreed we need to kill animals in mass to survive.
Well, humans die also. I mean, technically, you could say en masse. It's not. It's about the type of killing.
In order to survive, what do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, in order for civilization to function and progress, like people are gonna die on the fucking roads. People are gonna die constructing buildings. Like humans will die.
Yeah, but that's just sort of like I mean, yeah, like humans will die. We die. That's what happens. But we're not those people. Like,
well, they're being killed by human civilization.
I'm not really seeing like the purpose of them dying in those examples.
Okay,
versus
well,
the
just
of the animals that we kill for agriculture, which the purpose is so that humans can sustain themselves, right?
Yeah. I mean, when we're talking about killing animals to consume their corpses, so when we go to the alien situation there, you're trying to say that if the aliens need to do it, but we don't need to be killing animals to consume their corpses to survive. So that it's a bit of like a problem. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, need is like an arbitrary thing, really.
I was assuming you meant need in order to survive.
Okay, so is the vegan position that you only harm animals if it's what you need to survive?
Not necessarily. I mean, I don't even think that survival is always a justification. Like, I mean, humans are animals, and if me and you are trapped on a desert island and I can survive by killing and eating you, I don't think that becomes ethical. I think that we're just. I mean, if you look up like the definition,
because that's what I'm talking about: ethics and like morality being flexible and based on the situation and shit like that.
Okay, well, I mean,
because we're outside of civilization at that point, so we're operating on a different ethical framework than if we're living in a civilization.
Yeah, I mean, I would still hold the position that it's not ethical to murder you and consume your corpse.
Well, I'm glad to know that I would survive then. Longer.
Oh, it does. Well, I mean, if you're a big guy or you know some martial arts, maybe. But yeah. So when we talk about need, I'm just pointing out that the need component, you're adding it to the alien situation, but it's not there in the human situation. So that it's just that's you putting something in to make the alien situation more palatable. And yeah, I mean, I can just stop there.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would suggest that adding that is kind of unreasonable. Because if we need to kill animals to survive, I mean, I don't think that it's necessarily like justified. It becomes a lot more morally gray, though. I think we'd at least both agree there. Yeah.
You don't think it's justified to kill animals to survive?
I think it depends on the situation. Now, the thing is, I'm not going to have a survival situation argument with someone who doesn't agree that it's wrong to kill animals needlessly. So that just seems ridiculous to me. It would be like debating animal testing with you or something like this. If someone thinks it's fine to fucking stab an animal for a hamburger, how the hell can they make a rational evaluation of a more complex gray topic? So, I mean, yeah, killing to survive. I mean, my basic kind of position there, again, I'm not really going to let the debate go here, so you can just take it or leave it. I would say, you know, if you wouldn't kill an equivalent human, then you've got a serious ethical problem when you're saying survival justifies killing the animal. So if you're going to say, oh, yeah, you know, it's fine to just kill a cow to survive, would you kill a human of like cow level sentience? I mean, it creates a bit of a problem. But let's talk about the main thing, which is the situation where it's fucking not even remotely necessary. If we get on the same page about that, then maybe move to more morally gray situations.
Okay. Would you concede that you do many things that are not necessary, which cause harm and suffering to animals?
That are not necessary for my survival?
Just necessary. I don't know. We're just using this word necessary like it means something. So whatever that means.
Well, necessary for my survival is one interpretation of it. Like, I would agree that my lifestyle causes animals
not necessary, full stop.
Well, I mean, if you want to take some insanely absolute definition of necessary, nothing is necessary.
I agree with that. Actually, that's why I think vegans like. So
well, no. 1 sec, because that goes to a kind of moral nihilism. Why do rights even matter? Kind of thing, and that's not really the point, right? Because for humans, you've already bootstrapped ethics. So we're talking about whether veganism follows logically from the ethics that you've already bootstrapped.
Well, I don't know what that means.
So if you're a nihilist, you agree that value isn't inherent in the universe. It's a subjective concept, correct?
Sorry, this is like a tangent that is different than
Well,
what I mean when I say that nothing is necessary.
well, it's not really a tangent, because if you're saying, nothing is really necessary, there's no ultimate necessity. It's like, yeah,
Right.
I mean, things are only necessary to a subject.
So
right?
survival isn't necessary. So if your stated goal is to reduce suffering, then the ultimate, like,
It's not just about reducing suffering, though, because there's suffering that I think is justified by the the good of human civilization and the function and progress of civilization. Some humans will suffer, some animals will suffer. One obvious example that I often use is animals and humans being hit by cars. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I understand that driving will cause some amount of death. I think that it's a reasonable trade-off, and I accept that I might be the victim of a car crash.
It seems arbitrary, because you don't need to drive, so you're willing to do that even though it can result in animal death. But you're not.
I mean, we can delve into this if you want, but it's just, I think that driving is a rational thing to want to do. I think that it's how we get our food transported. It's how we transport everything, including ourselves. Whenever you have to do something that's in another location that's far enough away, you have to drive there. I think
eating meat is rational. So, I mean, if we can just label things as rational and call it an argument, then...
Well, I mean, I would definitely not say that it's a rational thing to do. I mean, because what you're doing, the fundamental thing you're doing is you're looking at a vegan lifestyle, and you're saying they still cause death, so therefore they're inconsistent. Why aren't they against all death? It's like, well, I mean, do I think that people? One sec. Do I think that people should drive around in cars with padding all over them, and we should reduce the speed limit to 5 kilometers per hour so less humans die? No, I don't. And I'm fully consistent because I accept that I might be the victim of the car crash.
Okay, I guess what I'm getting at, though, is some people do take it further than vegans. And
yeah, some people like Janus. So I would argue that creates a double standard in the opposite direction, unless you want things like car padding and, speed limit of 5 kilometers per hour.
I don't know who Janus is, but it sounds like what you're saying is you have picked the exact perfectly optimal spot or like compromise between reducing suffering and living a rational life. Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, I've picked a consistent position. Jainism is just it's a religion that the fundamental idea is you have to not cause suffering. So they wear like masks on their face to not inhale bugs. They sweep the ground before they walk. So what I argue for is just that we should be consistent in how we treat animals. So I don't necessarily argue with people that much about their moral standards for humans, because most people hold a moral standard for human that, if extrapolated consistently to animals, will actually result in veganism and not Jainism. So, like, for you, just to look at your position, you don't want people driving around in fucking, padded cars. You don't think that human life is so valuable that we have to reduce the speed limit to 5 kilometers per hour, do you? No. Okay. So why would you value animal life to that extent? You know what I mean? So I just argue for logical consistency. If you were someone who told me you do think that is necessary, you do think people should be driving in padded cars, then I would actually say probably that Jainism is the logical extension of your position.
Okay.
Yeah. So the main thing I argue for is just ethical consistency, because you have a certain standard in place for humans. You're saying, it's not right to just stab a human and consume their corpse. It's not okay because I want to. It's not okay because nihilism, though. It's not okay because, it's a trade-off of they get to live. You're saying you do not support a world where humans are bred into existence, stabbed to death at a very young age, and then consumed. So I just argue for consistency. I say, tell me what justifies that for the animals. And if we apply it to humans, will it justify it for them? Or is that not actually the justifying factor? So you can either name something and be consistent about it, or you can not and then have an inconsistent position.
I would support it for humans if that was the only way for humans to exist. Absolutely.
Okay, so there's just to be clear, because if you fully bite the bullet on just murdering humans and stuff, then most people will think that position is psychopathic. Even most meat eaters will not agree with you on that. So there was some Well, let's go to what you're saying.
Where the only way that okay, so if aliens came down and enslaved us, right? And then the only way that humans could exist was if those aliens bred us and ate us. Then that would be preferable to the aliens like extincting us.
So what I'm extincting, what is the word? Causing our extinction? I don't
you know what I mean.
Whatever. I say holocausting sometimes. So I mean, the basic thing that I'm just trying to get clarity on is when you say it's justified by a trade-off, if we create a situation where there are some humans who they're only able to exist if we engage in this kind of trade-off for, with aliens, with other humans, whatever, they only get to live if we breed them into existence, stab them to death at a young age, and consume their corpse. You've said that you don't support that, just to be clear, or you're saying you do support that.
The reason I don't support that is because we don't need that for humans to exist. Whereas we do need it for these chickens and farm animals to exist.
Well, let's make the analogy as tight as possible. You just need it for them to exist in certain numbers. So if humans could exist in greater numbers, if we were to engage in the Holocaust trade-off, I think that I don't want to put words in your mouth, probably reject that, right?
What, the Holocaust trade-off?
Well, yeah, you're I mean, the trade-off of you kill them by the billions to consume their corpses, and in exchange they get to live. That's just what I'm referring to. We can call it whatever you want, but I'm just pointing out, if the situation is less animals will exist if we don't engage in the trade-off. So if there were a situation where you have a choice of either more or less animal or humans existing, and in order to select the more option, they have to be bred into existence, stabbed to death at a young age, and then consumed. I'm assuming you wouldn't support that, but maybe you're gonna say something kind of crazy here. So what is your angle there? Do you support it or not?
No.
No. Okay. So the fact that more of a being can be around if we engage in the Holocaust trade-off, that's actually not a consistent justification, is it? Because you just rejected it.
I reject it for humans because I guess my problem is that I'm not so convinced that these domesticated farm animals can exist just on their own. I think that's the key difference. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, you ever seen a fucking wildlife sanctuary or a farm sanctuary or anything like this?
Well, so first of all, that's not natural. That's man-made. And so there's a cost to that. And
yeah, I don't care about whether it's natural or not. I mean, you probably don't either. It would be just appealing to nature to say that that's what determines whether it's ethical.
I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that like there would be no reason to keep chickens around if we didn't eat them. So to put them in a wild scene, it just seems like this thing that you do to like appease your guilt so that you don't have to extinct them.
Well, I mean, I personally, I don't care about stuff like species extinction. I care about it to the extent that it will affect the well-being of sentient beings. So if a species going extinct is going to, fuck with an ecosystem or something like that, and it's going to have a negative, broader impact, that's shitty. But if you're just like fundamentally, I mean, extinction has happened all throughout evolutionary history. Like, what is it, like 99% of species or something? So I don't think extinction is necessarily morally wrong. I think that, violation of interests is the real thing that matters here. So, I mean, look, like, you seem like a smart guy, and I feel like I've pushed you back on a lot of these things. I'm just wondering, do you feel at all persuaded of the vegan angle, or are you as certain you are of carnism as when you entered the conversation?
Yeah, not even remotely. I have to like think about my arguments a lot more because
I think
like
you may need to, yeah.
like I said at the beginning, I don't have experience debating, so I do feel like you got me like flustered and saying some like misspeaking a bunch of times, basically.
Oh, okay. Well, let me, for your own sake, offer this for anyone who watches this debate. This is just how a conversation happens. People say things, especially if you haven't spent a lot of time with the topic. You say things, and some of them are right, and some are wrong, and you correct and move along. And being able to correct and move along is actually a mark of intellectual honesty and maturity. So anyone who would take a shot at LP for that is a retard.
Yeah, so I just think that I started throwing out things off the cuff that weren't fully thought out in that, and so that's
fine.
I'll think about it some more, but I still think that I like my like fundamental position hasn't changed at all, and I still see like that it's I don't see it as immoral or unethical in any way.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm not sure what exactly your justification is there. And as for bouncing things off the wall, I mean, like, there's a whole bunch of us vegans here. You're welcome to, at any point, direct message me or Discord if you want to ping some arguments off me. That's totally fine. But with you saying your position hasn't changed at all, so are you currently at the point of you're not changing your position, but you're not sure you have an argument? Because that would be the point of let's end this and pick it up later. Or if you think you can keep defending the position, we can keep going.
Well, what you seem to be like obsessed with consistency over like the actual pragmatic results of like reducing suffering and stuff like that. So I have to think about like it just seems like you've arbitrarily picked this point of how much suffering you're willing to reduce, and then demanding that anybody who doesn't follow up to that point is like acting unethical or immoral.
Well, not necessarily, right? Because I'm just pointing out consistency and inconsistency, and most people want to have a consistent ethical position. And I've kind of said this before, but if someone holds the kind of position towards humans that we should not be driving, we should be in padded cars, I would actually suggest that the logical extension of that position to animals would not be veganism. It would be something further, like Jainism. Or if someone holds a position that, a Hannibal Lecter position, it's fine to just murder humans for no reason at all, I definitely would not say veganism is the extension of that position. A carnism would be the extension of that position. So I'm, again, like, when it comes to what is the like that fundamental level of value that we should put on humans and stuff, that's not really where I base my argument. And I'm willing to be persuaded on that kind of stuff. I just argue for consistency, because ethical consistency will lead most people with a rational moral position, if you accept my use of the word rational, to veganism. So just to be totally clear, there's the question of like what level of value should be put on human life initially. And that's something we could debate. But what I'm arguing is just based on the level you already put there, what is the consistent position for animals?
Okay. Yeah. I guess where I question whether or not your position is really consistent is that you're willing to you use need as a justification in some cases, but then in other cases where you don't need to kill the animals, you're still willing to do it. So
it kind of depends on what we mean by need. Like, I don't really appeal to need, because I don't think need, I thought I kind of said this earlier, I don't think need is really the thing you can zero in on. Like, if you need, let's say need for survival, for example, if I need to kill another human to survive, and that human is not aggressing against me in any way at all, I don't think it's ethical to kill that person. So need isn't necessarily the argument that I'm making.
Okay, but like you think it's ethical for animals to die as a result of agriculture so that humans can eat, right?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so what about, is it ethical for animals to die because of like global warming?
For animals to die because of global warming,
so that humans can live in comfort?
Well, global warming within reason, I mean, I just need to think about that, because I don't support like some crazy level of climate change. I don't want humans or animals dying from this if it's unnecessary.
Well,
Um,
I think a lot of animals are dying and gonna die as a result of climate change, right?
yeah, I mean, I think so. I think humans too. So yeah, I would definitely say you want to not be causing climate change to the best of your ability, for sure.
But nobody's doing that. Everybody is doing things for comfort that are gonna cause climate change, basically. Maybe
Yeah,
not.
because I think that we understand that there is, a sustainable level of things like emissions, and we would try to reduce to that sustainable level. That's kind of the goal. So, I
But
mean,
we're
I live relatively sustainably. I mean, for whatever it's worth.
okay, but like, so for YouTube to exist, there has to be like server farms and
Mhm.
like massive loads of electricity, right?
Yes.
So,
Yeah, I think that's justified.
right. So, okay.
Yeah.
So for you to be on YouTube has a cost to it, right? Like a costs electricity,
Yeah.
costs resources, and
Sure. And massive benefits, but yes, it has a cost. Just like driving has a cost in human life. Humans get hit by cars.
yeah, yeah, we covered that.
Well, it's the same thing though. It's just human
I'm
activity
not sure.
causing death. Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure it's the same thing. I'm thinking about it.
Okay, well, if you zero in on some morally relevant distinction there, you can always bring it up to me and we can always go around too. But the basic thing is like my ethical position. I try to base it fundamentally on how do I want to be treated? What do I think is ethical for what would I accept if I were in this kind of situation?
Right.
So, you know, I accept that I might like just to use the car example, just because it's a convenient, easy
Can
example.
I just finish my
Oh
YouTube?
yeah, sure. Sorry, I didn't realize you weren't done.
Sorry. So there's a benefit to what is the benefit to YouTube?
Well, I mean, there's just a plethora of benefits. Like there's, I mean, it's a information
Like
sharing
such
platform,
that
so
it
people can
justifies
learn about.
death and suffering of animals.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I mean, what are the benefits of YouTube? We could get into a bunch of them. Like I think the main thing is it's a big information sharing platform. So you can gain tons of, knowledge about different subjects on YouTube. You can entertain yourself with YouTube. There's, it's
Right.
where a ton
Do
of
you,
debates happen. This kind of conversation without YouTube would not be getting out to as many people.
do you
I
think
mean,
it's fair to say that like we can't really know if the benefits outweigh the cost?
um, Not really, no. I mean, I think it's clearly a desirable thing to have this kind of global video platform. And, if humans die in the construction of server farms, I support that too.
Okay, so do you not think that animals getting to live is a benefit of factory farming?
Well, now we're just going back to this. I mean, there's a practical problem with that of the quality of life is so poor that it's not a benefit. But then if we go to the steel man
But
and we
it
assume
is a
that they have a
benefit
good
because
quality of.
you already said you would choose it for yourself, and we think that
Whoa,
I
whoa.
sincerely believe that animals would choose it for themselves too.
One sec, LP. Wait, there's a bit of again. You're going back to that. You said you'd choose it for yourself. It's like I
Right,
don't actually.
because now benefit is a justification for killing animals.
And humans. I mean, there's things that are gonna cause death, and this is like I use driving as one
Right.
example.
So there's
There's
obviously there's benefits to farming animals.
Yeah. So what I would look at this again. So this is why I'm concerned with consistency, right? There's situations where we support killing humans. There's situations where we don't support killing humans. There's situations where it's fine to kill animals, and there's situations where it's not fine to kill animals. So all I'm making sure of is that if there's ever a case where we give one answer for animals and one for humans, it's okay to kill humans but not animals, or it's okay to kill animals but not humans, that is justified by some difference between the two, that if true of the other would justify it for them as well. So it's not inconsistent.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you see a problem with that? Do you just need to kind of process it for a while, or?
I think I'm good to, we can more or less wrap it up.
Okay, well, I mean, just in case there's any clarity lost, like, you don't have to respond on this, but I'm just pointing out, you would accept killing humans in some cases. You would accept killing animals in some cases. There's also cases where you wouldn't accept killing animals or humans. I mean, you probably don't support, like, just for an obvious example, just like torturing an animal for absolutely no reason.
No, of course not.
Yeah, so I mean, we can agree that there's situations where it's okay to kill and it's not okay to kill. All I'm saying is that I'm looking to see if people are consistent about the situations where they support the killing. So if they're going to say, you know, stabbing an animal to death for food is fine, stabbing a human to death for food is not fine, that has to be justified by some kind of actual difference between the two that would justify it for humans if true of humans.
Right. Well, for me, it's like I said at the very beginning, that
sure,
animals are a different species. So that's the difference. Right?
Okay, wait. That wasn't. I don't think you quite said that, because the reason I don't. If there's a timestamp and you did, then fair enough. But
I wanted to say it. Maybe I don't actually remember, but like when I was saying that I don't care about animal rights, I meant to say that I'm
based on species. Sure. Oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah, so because if you said the word species, that would have like red alarm in my mind. That's an appeal to species. So I mean, again, like you actually probably wouldn't like agree with that really if aliens were just going to massacre humans, not for any need, not for any reason except they're a different species. You probably don't think that's ethical.
I mean, I'm.
Species per se is not a justification for murder.
I don't think that the aliens like would care. Like I don't see how ethics.
It's not an answer, LP. You know that's not an answer. It's just. What do you think that killing just based on species is ethical?
War is not ethical, but it happens. You know what I mean? So if aliens,
war, that's a different situation. War can. There is such thing as a just war.
Okay, I mean, so therefore the aliens could have a just reason to come and kill us.
They could, but if the reason were just species and nothing else, would that be a good reason?
But I don't kill the animals because of species.
Okay, so it's not just species you're appealing to then, is it?
The species, though, is the difference between us and the animals. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, yeah, but I wasn't just asking for a difference. Another difference is that animals have tails and hooves. I'm asking for the difference that if true of humans would justify the treatment for the humans. And if you're saying it's species, then you'd have to bite the bullet on something like the alien Holocaust.
I mean, I don't see how I have a choice in that.
Well, yeah, but saying you have no choice, that's a statement about pragmatic, practical reality. It's not a statement about what you consider ethical. So that's giving a descriptive answer to a prescriptive question. So just to be clear, aliens killing humans just based on species, you're a different species, you don't think that's ethical. I mean, come on, you know that's not ethical. There's no way you think that's ethical.
What if they determined that our species was a threat to them?
You're adding that now this other component of it's a threat that might justify it. But we're saying the justification is just species.
Well, that seems like a weird reason to kill something.
Yeah, well, our reasons for killing animals, or at least the reasons we come up with, are also pretty fucking weird. That's you basically agreeing with my point on a level when you say that. So just to be clear, I agree it's weird. It's also not ethical. Come on, LP. You know it's not ethical.
I mean. I guess my problem, like the reason I'm hesitant on that is because like I said, I view ethics as like a framework that exists within our civilization. So when you have something that comes from outside of our civilization, they're not operating within that same framework. You know what I'm saying? So it's like a weird kind of thing.
Sure.
When you bring aliens into it.
Sure, but we're not talking about what's ethical for the aliens. We're from their perspective. I'm just talking about your perspective, about how you think the world should be. I mean, you personally don't think it's ethical to kill based on species. Yeah, I mean, unless you're going to say it's okay for an alien to just come and abduct whoever the fuck they want, or ultimately even Holocaust the entire world, because every single living organism on the world is another species than the aliens. Unless you're going to say that is ethical because those things are different species, then the appeal to species per se as a justification for murder is not being deployed consistently. You're rejecting it and accepting it. You're accepting it when it's convenient for you. You're rejecting it when it's not.
Okay. Can I, whatever, fine with the aliens. I got like one last thing I want to ask you about.
Please ask, but I do respect the honesty and the concessions where they're due. I think that's a good thing.
So we agree that animals die for agriculture, like field mice and stuff like that, right?
Sure. Totally.
So if you get to kill field mice for your kale or soy or whatever, why can't I just choose to kill a chicken for my meal?
The type of death is different. So when you're talking about killing animals in a field, you're talking about we are trying to just produce crops and eat, and you have animals that are interfering with this and making it impossible. When you're talking about just stabbing an animal to death, you're literally just talking about just randomly targeting this being, stabbing it, and killing it. So, I mean, I would just say they're different contexts. They're not the same thing.
I mean, that seems, again, like it just seems arbitrary because you know that those animals are going to die from the result of the agriculture. And you know that animals are going to die from a result of like factory farming.
Well, it's not arbitrary. It's a fully consistent position. So for example, if we knew that if there is some kind of virus that went around, and if humans caught it, they would be, they would be shrunk in size and reduced in brain power and would just go after our crops and try to destroy them. I mean, I would support killing those humans, and I would support living in a world where if I catch that virus, I might be killed. So I don't see why it's inconsistent to kill the insects. I'm all for reducing it as much as possible, absolutely. But to equate it with murder is just false as far as I can tell.
Okay, man, I'm good.
Okay, well, it's actually been a decent time talking to you. I mean, do you have any closing thoughts, or you want to take questions or anything, or are you just you done deep?
I gotta make supper. I'm pretty beat, so.
I hear you, man. Make some of that fucking kale and soy. It's good talking to you, LP.
Yeah, you too, man. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, and have a good night.
You too. Thanks. Bye.